A man named Sal Cooper was the most indispensable fighter of the Shadow Clan. His strength was considered absolute, unbeatable. But even the darkest shadows aren't without flaws. The clan's boss accused him of betrayal, claiming he had worked with their enemies for his own gain. In the name of the new young Master Cooper, he was sentenced to immediate execution, with no chance of parole. Sal lifted his head. His eyes burned with rage. He activated his art, placing his sword right in front of the boss's face. Cooper had devoted his entire life to serving the clan. Would it end so disgracefully? But the warriors closed in on him. He struck stealthily, their spears piercing his back. His guts burned, but he muttered a curse. If there really is life after death, he'd personally crush the enemy. Even if he was already dead, death didn't stop him. He fulfilled his last will and killed the clan boss. Then, he opened his eyes in the body of an infant. Spotting a strange shadow, he immediately prepared to attack. Cooper tried to figure out where he was. Hell? No. This place was too familiar. A woman entered the room. She demanded he be bathed. Someone would come for him soon. He recognized her, and he hated her. His gaze turned cold and hard. He got slapped for that. The impact knocked him down. As he fell and looked into a puddle, he saw a new face for the first time, and he laughed. Cruelly, ironically. He was alive again, in the body of a 3-year-old. Sal Cooper was reborn. In his past life, he was the shadow of the Cooper family, trained from childhood in pain, fear, and blood. Murder, arson, espionage. The shadows handled all the dirty work for the clan. In return, they were promised wealth and glory. He thought that was enough. But as a bastard, he longed to break free from the lower class. He wanted to be more than trash. He trained relentlessly. He wanted to make up for everything he lacked at birth. Even when ignored, he volunteered to be sent to war against other clans. He obeyed orders without mercy. He massacred enemies, razed cities. He won the war for the clan. He returned a hero. But instead of recognition, he was betrayed. Then the boss revealed the secret. Becoming a shadow, he swore an oath. It bound him to life through a spell. Their power flowed into him. Their pain healed him. And the promises of reward were lies for slaves. Enraged, Cooper raised his sword. One last strike. One last hope. But the boss's magic was stronger. His blade didn't hit its mark. His body was thrown far away. He understood the essence of the blood spell. He used the reversed oath. He regained his power to seize the boss's artifact, the wool. Still, he couldn't escape death. In this life, he would change everything. Suddenly, his stomach growled with hunger. It felt like he hadn't eaten in ages. Spotting a mouse on the floor, he decided to eat it first to ease his hunger. In my past life, they were considered a real delicacy on the battlefield, way better than human flesh. Cooper eyed the mouse like a predator. But suddenly 2 people entered the room and called him trash. The guy said Master Allen wanted to see him, so he'd go with them. Cooper remembered that in a past life, it was at this age he was chosen to become a shadow. But the memories of the ceremony were completely gone, and he believed this was when Allen poisoned him with his blood magic. But Cooper decided not to go and, gritting his teeth, clung to the boy's arm. The guy yelled that the kid was scratching him like a dog. The other also held his bitten arm and shouted to catch the kid. One of the guys threw a punch at the boy. But Cooper dodged. Grabbing a hammer under his arm, he cut off the arm of the guy who was throwing the punch in one swift strike. The other guy was either shocked or surprised to learn the boy could wield a sword, and Cooper thought he had a chance for revenge. In this life, he'd finish what he started in the last. In his world, there was a shadow oath, an ancient blood magic spell that lets the caster make the target their shadow, at the cost of just a few drops of blood. The shadow can't hurt its master, but only takes damage itself. Meanwhile, the shadow master will absorb all the power and skills accumulated by his shadow. Because of the excess of this art, the Empire enacted a law over 100 years ago. This law ordered the destruction of all books containing shadow oath spells, and also banned the use of this art. During the initiation, Allen simply slapped his disciple and told him he was trash. He told him he was useless. And he asked how he dared call himself a Cooper when even a wild dog could beat him. The disciple grabbed his face, apologized to the master, and begged for mercy. Afterwards, Allen approached Cooper and asked how he dared oppose his master's men. And since Cooper acted like that, he would rot in the dungeon. The men understood the order and began to carry it out. But suddenly, a girl in heels entered and told Allen to stop. She said this kid had been disturbed since childhood, so it was normal for him to act like that. The young woman was Hera, head of the family and Allen's mother. Hera declared that it wasn't time to punish him yet, as the initiation ceremony was more important. Hera approached her son and told him not to forget that she had explained what they were going to do today. Sal Cooper watched them, not even understanding why his mother had chosen such a pathetic jerk as a shadow. I should kill him the first chance I get. Alan turned to his mother with a smile and said he understood. Hera said she would take the others away and leave them alone with the future family head. Hera ordered the others to leave the room immediately and leave Master Alan alone. He had to cast a spell to mask the noise so no one would disturb the young master. He began the ceremony, and raising his glass above his head, said that from now on, they were all soldiers of their shadow army, and that they now worshipped their family. The students all shouted at once that they swore in the name of the shadow their lives would be devoted to the family's good. Everything they have and everything they will have now belongs to their family. Cooper Sal looked at the drink in his hands and, drinking it, said it was for the family. After drinking their glasses, all the future shadow warriors fainted. Alan mocked them and called them idiots. They can't even tell poison from holy water. Alan took the knife, made a cut on his finger, and began the magic. Placing his drop of blood on the bucket, he said all their strength, all their skills would belong to him, and all the wounds they carried, they would bear. Alan released his magic, and combined it with those of his future servants, covering them with magic. Alan immediately felt the power flood him, and the shadow oath was perfectly fulfilled. He didn't even think it would be this easy, and he had to tell his mother the good news. He ran out of the room to warn his mother. But as he left, his legs suddenly gave out. Collapsing to the ground, he wondered why his feet wouldn't obey him. Was it a side effect of the shadow oath? And his mother hadn't warned him. Alan got really scared then and started screaming for his mother to save him. Meanwhile, Cooper Sal survived to say Alan was actually just a pathetic coward who can only hide behind his mother's skirt. It was a shame his mother had cast a silent spell to keep him away, so even if he screamed loudly, no one could hear him. Cooper Sal looked at him like a victim and smiled with a scary, intimidating grin. Alan asked the guy how he woke up. How did he know about the oath? Sal replied, "Is he really scared? Does he think he knows much more? What if I told him I could cancel the oath? How would he react?" Sal immediately brandished his sword and decided to smash the bucket, driving it deep into the ground. Alan immediately grabbed the bucket and felt his heart explode. He asked Sal what he was doing and told him to stop. Sal smiled and remembered a past life. He had to die to get back everything Alan stole from him, but this time, it was eye for an eye. Sal simply turned his sword and unleashed his attack on Alan, letting it all out at once. But at the last moment, the charm broke, and Alan's scream was heard. The servant told the mistress it was over. But Hera heard her son's voice and turned toward Alan. She felt something was wrong. But things eventually got better. The servant came to the lady and said the young master was fine, just a little exhausted after using such a powerful art. As for canceling the silent spell, one of the servants got distracted while casting it. It was already finished. Hera said she understood and ordered them to give his body to the dog. The servant looked at Alan and said he seemed a bit worried, which was understandable since he was too young for this kind of situation. This inevitably caused major psychological tension. Alan wondered why he felt like something had happened, but he couldn't remember what. Hera placed her hand on her son's head and told him not to worry about the shadows. It's the law of the jungle. He has no choice. But Alan pulled her hand away and asked, how could it be any different? He's the future head of the Cooper family. His thugs should be ready to die for him. Then he asked his mother, is what he says true? Hera laughed and said he was definitely her son. He's thinking straight, and if he wanted something, he should tell his mother she'd do anything for him. Alan hugged his mom and said she was the best. Cooper stood by the window then, saying, what a cute couple. Too bad Alan Cooper was now just a shadow of his former self. In his past life, while fighting for his family, he had discovered a whole folio of blood magic that happened to contain another shadow oath. He willingly gave the folio to the family head, but by then, he was already under its influence. It was a good thing he had studied the book beforehand, and combined that knowledge with the experience of regaining his past life's power. Now, just a drop of blood is enough to break their vows. Their relationship with Alan is about to change drastically. But even so, he still has 3 years, and is too weak to fight them. So, it's time for him to get stronger. And now, his first step toward power will be the Blazing Mountain, a true proving ground created by the Cooper family to test shadows and find candidates strong enough for the role. Just like Prometheus, who stole fire for humans and accepted his fate, suffering daily under the eagle's claws. The Cooper family threw very young kids onto a blazing mountain to walk this thorny path while eagles tore at their flesh, and even if you die, you're not allowed to give up. Only when the first shadow reaches the mountain's peak will it receive the griffin eagle's blessing. Then it will have a body that can't be harmed, no matter how much it's tortured or beaten. The leader gathered all the boys and told them they had only 3 days. They had one goal. The methods didn't matter. They just had to reach the mountain's summit alive. And the trainer for this challenge was Eno Walker. Eno also told them to remember that anyone who gave up would be executed in 3 days. They whistled and prayed for their bright future, giving the green light to the battle trials. But suddenly, Eno saw that one kid in the group was so confident and unshaken. The pupil said it was Sal Cooper, the jerk who pissed off the young master yesterday. Eno was surprised it was him. Sal decided not to follow the others and, turning away, chose to climb the mountain alone. The mentor mocked him, saying the idiot had decided to climb the mountain, barehanded. He'd probably crash before even reaching halfway. The servant was curious and asked why not go get his body right away. Eno said that was impossible. He had a better idea. Now was the time to show himself. Suddenly, a strange monster flew over the mountain. The disciples, scared, asked what it was. Looking closely, they saw it was an eagle. The eagle was so ruthless it hadn't left a single kid behind as it climbed the mountain path. But Sal reached the top and looked around. The eagle had already killed everyone else. But the eagle's gaze was so sharp it noticed him immediately. Eno took his bow and said, Sal pissed off Master Allen yesterday, so why not use the griffin's help to get rid of him? Aiming, Eno said he wanted the young master to have some fun. Then he shot an arrow straight at the griffin. The griffin dodged the arrow and asked who dared do that. At that moment, Sal stepped in front of him. The griffin wasted no time and attacked Sal, yelling for him to die. But Sal was ready and could say the same to him. Sal leapt to dodge the griffin's strike. He remembered living through this before, so he was sure. Climbing the griffin, he declared there was only one way to get in the griffin's blessing as fast as possible. He raised his sword against the griffin and decided to tame it. Then he plunged his sword into its head. He knew the griffin was a stubborn beast, with intelligence comparable to a human's. If he couldn't fully defeat it, he couldn't tame it. That meant he had to give it his all. Sal brandished his sword and attacked. The griffin was just gathering energy to unleash. The attack was unexpected. The griffin couldn't dodge and was thrown back. Sal couldn't stand anymore and clung to the shards. But he was so stubborn he grabbed the stone and held on tight. At this point, Sal was lucky to have realized. He was too reckless. He was only 3 years old, not 30. Even his swordsmanship skills from his past life wouldn't help. And with his current size and weight, the griffin would crush him before he could get close. Luckily, there was another way to beat it. But he absolutely had to reach the cave. The griffin, seeing the guy was still alive, decided to attack again with the same move as before. But Sal dodged to the side, sensing it was powerful wind magic. Every time the griffin unleashed gusts from its mouth, its power increased from 1 to 10. And once that happened, even 100 men here wouldn't be enough. Then suddenly, he remembered something. Sal realized that since he couldn't hide from its attacks, why not just use his own attack to reach the cave? Sal climbed the mountain and jumped straight at the griffin with his sword. He understood that to minimize damage, he would immediately use the Shadow Oath's power to seize Alan's power. Sal used his powers as Alan fell off the bench, fainting. The servant, terrified, shouted that the master had fainted. After that, Sal was inside the cave and everything was working. Running deeper, he decided to hurry up. The griffin chased after him, saying this guy was an idiot. And where was he running to? Suddenly, the griffin stopped, shocked. At that moment, Sal grabbed his child and placed his sword at its neck. The butterfly begged its mother to save it. Sal said few know that the offspring of a powerful creature like the griffin is born with broken wings, unable to fly. The griffin asked what he planned to do with its baby. Sal replied not to worry, he didn't want to hurt it. On the contrary, he could help heal its wings so it could fly. But there was one condition. The low-ranking underling had told the boss the kid was out of earshot. And apparently, it had already been eaten by the griffin. Eno said it was time for them to report to Mr. Allen. They'd surely be rewarded. At that moment, Sal flew toward them and, after hearing those words, offered to take them to him. He just had to annoy them and send them straight to hell. That's where they'd be waiting. Eno turned around, surprised, and asked, "Is that Sal Cooper?" They were scared and ran off screaming it was impossible. But the griffin gave them no chance to escape and devoured them immediately. He declared he'd fulfilled his part of the deal, and now it was his turn. Sal replied he should go then. Let the griffin take him to the dungeon at the northern end of this mountain range. The griffin lifted the young man and led him to the land of stones. It said that, as agreed, it would bring him the breakthrough sword, then the Medusa's blood, which would heal all his wounds. Sal replied that was no problem. But he only regretted that his goal wasn't the sword, and definitely not to help the griffin. The griffin raised its paw and opened a huge door to let him pass. Sal wanted to use this griffin to wreck this dungeon. Opening the gates, Sal saw before him a massive statue of a man Medusa and his subordinates. Sal said that in a past life, when Alan was 12, his mother had sent an entire shadow army to retrieve the breakthrough sword for him. However, in this dungeon, there was a Medusa statue that could turn all living beings to stone. But many shadows fell on Alan during this battle. He was the only survivor. However, The breakthrough sword can only belong to an S-level genius, meaning he couldn't have picked it up. But Alan was a very gifted young man. He took the sword and killed Medusa without any trouble. As a result, Alan became the chosen sword-bearer and was rewarded with countless resources, strong connections, and many loyal servants. This means that in this life, even if he can't get his hands on this weapon, he can't let anyone else take it either. The Griffin asked, "Where's the sword? And where's Medusa's blood? Why is there only a pile of stones?" Suddenly, the doors slammed shut behind them. The Griffon, suspicious, asked the boy if this was some trick he was playing on him. But Sal gave a surprised look and answered the Griffon behind him. The Griffon turned and saw statues running toward them. The statues shot lightning and started attacking them. The Griffon asked, "Since when did these stupid rocks come to life?" But Sal ran away and said he didn't know either. The Griffon got angry and launched his attacks, wrecking the statues with his claws. But seeing the stones glow, the Griffon said they could change structure. The statues then merged into one. Sal stepped back and said they were ruthless, cruel, and terrifying. The three statues had no facial features and, like the mythical Graea sisters, shared one eye and one tooth. They are, like Medusa, daughters of the sea god. So, they can control water. It's time for them to run. The statue unleashed a huge water jet, trying to finish them off. The Griffin hesitated to flee and asked, "What's the point of running? We have to find the sword." Sal ran ahead and replied, "I'm already looking." The Griffon said if this keeps up, the ceiling will collapse. "We'll die here like this." Sal replied that he was searching. "There are runes on the wall over there. Maybe they'll give us the solution." But Sal was excited and thought it was awesome. At this rate, the dungeon was about to collapse, buried under a pile of stones. And now, he was going to go through the secret passage he discovered in his past life. But the problem now was that he didn't have enough power left. Sal told the Griffon the runes said to get rid of the top eye, then it would stop attacking. The Griffin nodded and asked which other eye was up there. The Griffin simply approached the eye and ripped it out with his beak. Medusa immediately withered and started losing strength. The Griffon said they had turned into water, that's just sick. Sal replied that, according to the runes, Perseus discovered Medusa's presence right after stealing Graea's sister's eye. So the eyes are their weak spot. The Griffin asked, "Where's the sword? Where's the blood that can heal his child? Could this eye help?" Sal gave him a surprised look and asked, "The sword?" Pointing, he said, "Let me see." The Griffon turned around, and behind him saw a blazing sword embedded in the stone. Sal said when Perseus cut off Medusa's head with this sword, red and green blood flowed out. But the red can poison any living being, and the green can heal any wound. But that's just a legend. This dungeon holds another secret. The Griffin asked, surprised. "A secret?" Sal said yes. And when Perseus's sword appears in the dungeon, Medusa will also resurrect. But Medusa was in an unexpected wait and attacked them from behind, releasing another water jet. Sal thought this was the perfect time to get out of here. After all, there was no way to stop the awakened Medusa statue except by cutting off its head with Perseus's sword. But suddenly, he felt the attack coming. He reacted just in time and jumped into the water. Turning around, he was a bit shocked by what he saw. He didn't understand where the Griffon had gone. The Griffon then hid behind a rock and came out saying this thing looked even scarier than the others. Let him handle it. He doesn't want to die. Sal was shocked because he didn't know the Griffin had the ability to shrink. But Medusa didn't wait and attacked the boy with her tentacles. Sal was glad he had already cleared this dungeon in a past life, so he knew what to do. But first, he had to get the Round Table Knight's shield. Thanks to the reflection, he can avoid direct eye contact with the Medusa, and on top of that, he resists her eye attack. Medusa strikes immediately, but Sal manages to grab his shield and take cover behind it. Taking cover behind it, Sal said it was powerful, but the force flow was so intense he couldn't stay standing and got slammed back. He hit the ground and realized things weren't looking good. Still, the shield wasn't enough. He destroyed the dungeon exit. But he physically can't wield the piercing sword. How can he be sure if he hasn't even tried? He has to do it, or he'll die here. Jumping to grab his sword, he decided that even if it meant risking his life, he'd go for it. Grabbing the sword, he raised it above his head. A bit surprised. He'd just picked it up. But suddenly, a tentacle pierced through his chest and spread to the other side. Sal was just holding the sword and didn't understand how he could lift it. After all, he wasn't gifted from birth. He remembered when Alan asked how he even dared to touch that sword with a D rank. Now, Sal realizes something's off. Suddenly, it hits him that's what it's about. His fencing talent now belongs to him. Sal used his fencing skill and started glowing with red flames. The Griffon watched from behind the rock and asked what happened. He saw the kid escaped his grip in one piece. He'd become a monster. Sal wasted no time and swung his sword twice. After a few strikes, he killed the Medusa, leaving his mark on her head. But he realized in his past life, his fencing level was S. Alan's mother used some magic to kidnap him and give him to her son. Then she erased his memories, that's the truth. Sal wiped sweat from his face after the win and clapped. The Griffin wondered what was wrong with this guy, but Sal was getting more and more interesting. Alan and his whole family kept them waiting. The Griffin decided it didn't matter anymore, and while the kid was going crazy, it was better to get out of here soon. Suddenly, Sal called the Griffin over. The Griffin asked what was wrong. Why had he called him? The Griffin thought he was an S-rank monster, so why was he scared? Sal asked if he had a sturdy head. The Griffin didn't get it at first and asked, "What?" Then he shifted back to his ancient form and flew off the pile of rocks. The Griffin realized this guy was a jerk, and he'd been using him to wreck the dungeon from the start, but since he agreed to heal his little one, he'd forgive him. They didn't know he left a trace behind. At that moment, the Medusa slowly slipped through the rocks and sank into the mountain's deep seal. The Griffin turned to the man and said he blessed him, and gave him an indestructible body. No matter how many hits he takes, he'll stay unharmed. Sal received the reward and started feeling way more resilient, and the small wounds healed on their own. Luckily, he minimized the damage he'd pass on to Alan. That way, his mother wouldn't suspect anything anytime soon. Also, he had to hide his level talent, no need to attract too much attention. Sal pulled out a bottle and told the Griffin to let his little one drink this. His wings would heal. The Griffin took the bottle and poured it straight into the baby's mouth. The baby felt inner power and immediately took flight. The Griffin cheered and shouted to the baby that he could finally fly. Sal replied he was just learning to fly. If he doesn't find a master before adulthood, he'll remain a dumb little bird. The Griffin asked the boy what he meant. Sal said that wasn't it, he just wanted to warn him. After all, he only got this strong after finding his master, right? The Griffin understood that was true. If his master didn't feed him humans, he couldn't develop his soul and get stronger. But the master died over 100 years ago. Where to find someone as strong as him, able to kill without blinking? Suddenly, he remembered the boy. He turned to him and said he was asking him to take his little one as a magical pet. And he saw that Sal, despite his young age, was way stronger and smarter than his peers. Maybe one day, he could even surpass Brad. Sal was happy to have been chosen. He told the Griffin he'd take it, but only if they made a deal. The Griffin asked in surprise. A deal? Sal said he wanted to know everything about Brad Cooper, and also where their precious key is that opens the door to Brad's spirit sword. Hera then asked the doctor what that meant, because she didn't understand why. After all, Alan had fainted twice out in the wild. That couldn't just happen like that, right? And how long had he stayed inside the spirit sword? How long could it last? The Guardian told her not to worry. After all, thanks to the Shadow Oath, the young master would recover quickly. Indeed, it's the little shadows that take the damage, not him. Hera realized all of this was true. Something strange was going on, and she thought Alan had become like this right after the shadow ceremony. Someone was clearly behind all this. The servant turned to the lady and announced that an unexpected event had occurred, requiring her attention. Sal Cooper took first place in the exam, as expected. However, Sal Cooper used the Griffin to kill Walker's uncle and nephew, then tamed its baby. Hera, scared, asked where he was. The Guardian replied he was right outside the door and would call him immediately. Sal entered the room right after and asked Hera if she wanted anything. Hera asked why he killed Walker. Sal looked at her and said he did it for the good of their family. It's pretty pathetic that a shadow tamer got killed by a 3-year-old. Their Cooper family doesn't need that kind of trouble. And wasn't his wife on board with him now? Suddenly, Hera saw the same expression on his face. Anger, disgust, but no fear. He definitely had a trick up his sleeve. Hera told Doob to give Sal a reward and send him to the Eden Healing Springs. Doob bowed and expressed his gratitude. He thought the Eden Springs would suit him perfectly. Hera left the country and told Doob to speed up his magic deprivation training. He should confiscate Sal's talent and pass it to his son before the Bradsword inheritance ceremony begins. She realized that if Alan's secret about his lack of innate swordsmanship talent got out, he could be disinherited. For now, she'd let him go and see how far his arrogance could go. He ran straight to the Eden Springs. But he remembered, before parting, that the Griffin said Master Brad had used a forbidden magic technique before dying to seal his soul deep in the Eden Springs. The goal was to pass on all his swordsmanship knowledge and experience accumulated throughout his life to an heir with essential level talent. The Cooper family's status within the Empire wouldn't change, even after his death. Once at the bottom, he had to let the current carry him. That would lead him to an underwater cave where he'd find the key. That key would lead him to his master. But something's brewing at the Eden Springs because of his long separation from his master, and he doesn't know what it is. The only thing he can tell is that the master has blood magic. That's going to be tough to pull off. Sal said blood magic sounded weird. Looks like getting the inheritance sword before Alan will be tough. The guy who saw him said he was the same Sal Cooper who qualified for the exam and took first place. The second student replied that was right. He also managed to tame a baby griffin. But suddenly, Lucian Sia approached the guy, and Reno's little sidekick asked, "What's so cool about that? He's just the son of a pathetic, easygoing girl." The Cooper family's stable boy's son, Reno, came up to Sal and congratulated him. Turns out he doesn't just look like a scrawny monkey. He moves like one too. Sal was the first to climb the slide. Sia couldn't help but laugh out loud, saying he really was a monkey. Sal remembered that in his past life, these two men had been his subordinates. But in the end, he realized Alan had sent them on purpose. They made up all the accusations against him and then framed him as a traitor to the homeland. And since he could always count on Alan to back them up, they quickly got used to the power. Immediately raised his fist at him, asking why he wasn't responding. After all, he wanted to see if his indestructible body could help. As he struck with his fist, Sal grunted all the way and stopped at the very last second. Sal twisted his arm and said they were going to take care of it, immediately screamed in pain. Sia, seeing his friend hurt, instantly pulled out a knife and shouted that the guy was trying to. Sal twisted his arm and said they were going to take care of it, immediately screamed in pain. Sia saw his friend hurt, pulled out a knife right away, and shouted that the guy was trying to. Loyal to the death. But Saya hit so hard he didn't see where he was striking. Saya positioned in front of him, and the knife pierced the man's chest. Sal apologized. He had accidentally used that man as a shield, but they got really lucky. This water can heal all wounds. Let them bathe for a while. After all, he'd still need him to train together. And in this life, he'd make them obey without questions. Fell to the bottom of the water, and Sal smelled dark magic. How could such evil and forbidden magic, blood magic level, appear in waters that healed all wounds? Seems like that's what the griffin called something strange. Better not to go down into that water. That means finding another way to reach the bottom of the spring without touching the water. Suddenly, a warrior passed by him, dragging a girl by the hair. She was screaming and begging for help. Sal immediately recognized that voice. The warrior said she didn't even know how to serve tea properly, and she thought she deserved a good beating. The girl apologized and said she didn't want that. She asked to be let go. Sal looked and realized it was Adelia. The warrior raised her hand toward her, saying she still didn't dare to protest. But right then, he heard a voice telling him he was about to get beaten. Sal gave him no chance and sliced him in two. The boys were terrified and shouted that a man had been killed and they needed to report it to the guards. Sal asked if she was okay. At that moment, Adelia saw him as her savior. Sal thought she was a princess, and seeing her face, he believed he had scared her. Sal apologized for frightening her. Adelia said it hadn't even happened. She thanked him for saving her life. After introducing herself, she asked his name. He recalled an old memory where Adelia had told him he'd been hurt again. Sal realized she had been his best friend in a past life. She had incredible magical talent, far beyond her father's power. During the battle, she always told him not to worry because she'd help him. Adelia asked the boy if he was Mr. Cooper. Either way, she was grateful he saved her. Sal saw that even at 5 years old, Adelia was unbelievably kind. He said, "No problem, any gentleman would do the same," and that she could just call him Sal. However, she didn't know how to drain this spring or how to reach the bottom without touching the water. He understood he couldn't forget his mission. Since he found Adelia, everything would be fine. Adelia asked if he'd noticed anything too. Sal gave a surprised look and asked what. Adelia said there was strange magic in this spring that healed all wounds, but once touched, nothing else could heal the body. Sal immediately realized it was another way for the Cooper family to control their shadows, forcing them to get healed. Adelia said she still wanted to thank him for saving her. She knew a way to go down to the bottom without touching the water. Adelia used her powers on him and said she called it duck magic. Sal was surprised and asked, "Duck magic?" The girl said it was because it made people like ducks. Even underwater, their feathers would never get wet inside. Sal realized it was a form of isolation obsession. He knew that even as a kid, Adelia was used to giving spells weird names. The Cooper warriors arrived and said, "There they are. And that's the guy who killed the man." Adelia got scared and said they were coming for them. Sal grabbed her hand and said they had to get out fast. Together, they entered the water. Sal saw the underwater current led straight to the bottom of the spring. That's where they had to go. Adelia told the kid he couldn't go. They had to get out of here, but they couldn't fight the current and were dragged under. Once in the other world, Adelia tried to wake Sal and slowly slapped him across the face to bring him back to his senses. Sal opened his eyes and saw a girl in front of him. He looked around and realized she was there. Adelia asked what it was. Sal said it was a precious key, capable of opening the gate leading to the spirit sword. He said there was no gate here, so how could he use the key? Maybe he had to summon the gate? Sal replied that even though he didn't know what a spirit sword was, he could try. Adelia took the key, and turning to her, asked her to hear his voice, find her master, and open the gate that would lead to him. But Sal suddenly felt something and said it was bad. He turned around and saw the plants had turned into monsters attacking them. But Sal reacted just in time, grabbed Adelia, and started running. He jumped the other way, out of the plant's reach. Sal opened his eyes and saw the portal had appeared. But when he looked at Adelia, she was unconscious. Sal pushed her aside and decided there was nothing he could do, and now, he'd have to leave her here for a while. He placed his hand on her head and decided to use the invisibility magic she had taught him in his past life. After all, a tough battle awaited him. It was a trial to obtain Brad's very own sword. Sal fearlessly headed toward the portal and stepped through it. After all, a tough battle awaited him. It was a trial to get Brad's sword himself. Entering the portal, he came out the other side and found himself in a place where corpses had lain for centuries. But the monster inhabiting the place saw the boy and greeted him. This life told the story of Eden Springs, because it wasn't just a place to rest and heal wounds, but also where the Cooper family kept their concubines. But Sal was only now learning what really happened to them. They had become prey to the sword. Suddenly, the monster appeared before him and said it sensed an S-tier talent. Sal stepped back sharply, surprised to hear that. The monster asked, "Is he really Alan Cooper? That kid born with S-tier talent?" But he didn't look like a spoiled brat either. It immediately lunged at him, saying the boy was just a bastard who'd stolen the inheritance. But Sal used his new sword and stopped the attack. The monster said he wouldn't give it up for free. He had to pass a test first. Sal told him not to worry. He was here just to kill him. The monster raised his sword and declared he expected nothing less from his offspring. The monster threw a punch and called it arrogance. Sal couldn't withstand the force and was thrown to the side. The monster told the boy he was still too weak, but he saw he had the griffin's gift, and he didn't expect that brainless bird to recognize him. It had been a long time since he'd seen a griffin. Sal knew Brad had sacrificed most of his power to seal his soul inside his own sword, and he had to get it. But with his current strength, he still had a chance. Sal got up immediately and unleashed his Griffon power. With the Griffon's help, he placed a huge cross behind the monster. The monster turned and realized it was a blood magic ban technique. Sal said they'd been dead for a long time and didn't know that over the last 100 years, the Empire had invented several secret techniques to fight blood magic. And now, he was going to rip out its heart and claim the inheritance. Sal rushed at him with his sword, but the monster asked him not to. At the last moment of his attack, the monster suddenly broke free and stepped back, saying he was scared. Sal was shocked and didn't understand how it managed to escape. The monster laughed out loud. It had been a long time since it had played with such a tiny mouse. But the game was over. It didn't want to play anymore. He had strength and talent, but not enough to deserve the right to wield his sword. The monster refused to play and released his spirits. Sal immediately understood he could use blood to create spirits, and their power was immense. But suddenly, one of the spirits attacked him from behind and wounded his back. Sal realized they were attacking too often. He applied his sacred sword defense technique. He decided to use the piercing sword to defend against its magic. The monster simply touched his finger and declared it was useless. It easily broke through his defenses. Beyond that, the monster grabbed the boy by the throat and said he needed to know that after a cat plays with a mouse, it ends up eating it, right? Sal immediately felt his blood and power vanish. The monster said his gold was so warm and familiar that one of his concubines had the same. Maybe it was his mother? When Sal heard about his mother, he instantly flew into a rage. The monster said that was perfect. He was about to taste his baby. Sal immediately remembered how his mother used to talk to him and sing lullabies before bed. She told him she'd always be there and would stroke him all night. The next day, Sal was already running to his mother's place, flowers in hand. But without watching where he stepped, he fell flat on his face. That day, his mother apologized and said she had to leave. At that moment, she didn't even look back to glance at her son and just walked away. After that, all the boys started beating him up, saying his mother didn't want him. Nobody wants trash. And after that, he just thought he was a miserable kid. Sal grabbed his head and screamed that his mother couldn't have abandoned him. And now, he knew he had killed. Sal felt a sudden surge of strength, and, interrupting the fight, declared that he was the one who killed his mother. He immediately plunged his sword into the monster's chest. The monster didn't realize what was happening at first. Then he felt pain in his chest and a tear in his meridian. The monster understood he was bleeding out, and he was shocked at how easily the boy used his magic. But if he really killed him, he'd burn all his blood soon. The monster grabbed his chest and said he'd spent too much energy with the blood spirits. He needed to eat a few more women to regain his strength. The monster immediately rushed to his wife's flesh and started eating. Sal asked, "Is it good?" Then he jumped at him with his sword and said he asked if his mother was tasty. As he drove his sword into the monster's body, he saw his mother in front of him. He was a bit confused. But Sal didn't stop this time and plunged his sword once more into the monster's head. The monster fell to the ground and said the kid was completely crazy. "You need to back off and find other concubines, or he'll die." But Sal didn't stop there and stabbed the monster again. The monster begged him not to kill him. He could merge with his sword, become a spirit weapon, and give him more power. But Sal replied he didn't deserve it. The monster dissolved and took the form of blood. The story said the legacy of swordsmanship, once absorbed, would fuse with his body forever. Sal suddenly remembered he hadn't seen his mother since birth. Just a crazy fantasy and a pathetic monster. But when he looked at the blood, he saw his mother's face saying, "No, it's not a monster," and his mother would always be there for him. Suddenly, Adelia entered and asked if he was okay, and why was he covered in blood? Was he hurt? She was going to heal him right away. Adelia touched him and immediately applied her healing art. But Sal remembered that in his past life, Adelia had been his concubine. Suddenly, he couldn't hold back and hugged her. Adelia didn't understand what was happening and felt embarrassed. And now, Sal promised himself that in this life, he'd never let anyone touch her. After the disappearance of the demon that was Brad's sword spirit, a real divorce began in the Cooper family. All the guardians of Eden Springs were sentenced to death. And the servants, who had seen Sal's rage, no longer dared to act so rudely toward Adelia. And according to rumors, it was Sal Cooper who stole the spirit sword of the Springs, but without enough proof, Alan's mother could only continue her pursuit. Imprisonment, blood tests, poisoning. But Sal remained unharmed. 4 years later, on the Cooper family training grounds, Alan was fighting his servants. The servant fell to the ground and begged for mercy. Alan asked, did he really want to dominate him when he was so weak? The servant replied, of course not. He was simply amazing. At that moment, young Isaac, head of the Isaac family, declared he had heard that young Master Alan was born with an S-tier talent, and he was now convinced of it. The head of the Cooper family, Duke Leon, was also by his side and thanked him. Suddenly, someone in the crowd ordered everyone to turn around. The warriors immediately spotted Sal, and all lunged at him. But Sal stood still, saying this was actually brilliant. He used his shadow blade, and easily pushed aside all the servants in his way. Young had been watching this kid from home and recognized the art. Usually, kids his age were still at the level of an iron sword expert. And this kid had clearly already reached the level of a silver sword protector. This is just unbelievable. Alan got angry, thought he was an idiot, and asked how he dared steal his glory. Alan pointed his sword at him and declared he was challenging him to a fight. Sal was surprised and didn't understand what he was about to do. Sal realized that if Alan had inherited his talent like in his past life, his power would now be at max. Sal couldn't refuse and accepted. It was a perfect chance for him to test his current strength. Alan got hyped and ordered his guys to attack. This was the perfect chance to finish him off. People were already shouting for the master to win, and Master Alan was about to show him the true sword art. Sal attacked first and Alan countered. But he felt like he could control him. Sal turned to the Lord and told him to use his power. Wouldn't even his natural mother favor him? Alan was surprised and asked what this idiot was talking about. Sal immediately raised his sword and the gentleman stepped back. Alan got angry and thought it was impossible. After all, his mother had told him that with his current strength, no one could match him in combat. Sal saw that the Lord was weak. Even the magical aura of his sword was negligible. Clearly, it was just an artificial boost. He had no talent for swordsmanship. Sal dodged his attack and jumped, telling the Lord to let him show what a real punch looks like. Alan turned and saw the sword coming at him. But Sal showed no mercy and stabbed the sword into his head. The warriors were terrified, and all ran to the Lord's side. Alan, at that moment, held his face and screamed in pain. Yuk started laughing and said he must be mistaken. Maybe his servants, who just lost to their master, were faking it? Leon didn't let him talk like that and told him not to forget himself. Yuk apologized and said that after all, Mr. Allen was engaged to his young sis, and he just didn't want her marrying a thug. Leon told him he was worrying too much. Without this arranged marriage, it's impossible to say if his sister would have married anyone. Yuk got angry and asked what he just said. He turned and said he had to leave, and not to forget that the joint action between their families would take place in 10 days. Leon was also angry and thought Alan was just a thug. He asked the servant what the shadow's name was. The servant replied it was Sal, the son of one of his concubines. Leon was surprised that he was his son. No wonder he was so skilled with the sword. Leon thought for a moment and asked the servant to bring him to the office. The servant replied that it would be done. After the battle, Sal approached the Lord and asked if he wanted anything. Leon used his eye then and detected no innate talent in him. Is he really hiding his power to compete for the heir title? But he definitely has a motive. And the good thing is, he's just a boy. He'll be easy to expose. Leon said that in 10 days, he would lead a squad of 10 shadows, and he and Isaac's family men would head to the Lost Crystal City to retrieve dragon eggs for their family. And it's the sword that activates the teleportation formation in the Crystal City. Sal realized that to get the dragon eggs, they definitely face the dragon and piss it off, and he guessed this wouldn't be an easy mission. Leon was scheming something. But how could he let such a chance to get a dragon egg slip by? Sal told the Lord he understood but had a request for him. Leon was surprised and thought, what kind of request? The next day, Sal was on the road. During that time, the griffin had grown to a gigantic size. Adelia asked him if he hadn't told the family heads he'd accompany them as a servant. She felt uncomfortable just sitting there the whole way. Sal said she shouldn't worry. Then she asked the guys if anyone minded, right? The guys replied in shaky voices that no. When they arrived, the guys asked, is this the Crystal City? Where are the crystals? And the dragon's nest? Sal said he didn't know either. Suddenly, a girl approached them and said she didn't expect the Cooper family's elite unit to ignore this entire city. The young girl turned out to be the younger sis of the Isaac family head and Alan's fiancé. She said that statement made her laugh. Sal turned to her and asked why she called them idiots. Gloria held out her hand and said this was the same Sal Cooper. It was their first meeting, and they could call her Gloria. Sal turned around and told Adelia to keep Mayo with her because he'd be back soon. Gloria got mad and yelled that he didn't even look at her, but Sal kept on with his mission. Gloria followed him and said she was really talking to him. Sal turned and said he was afraid if he didn't activate the portal before sunset, their whole trip would be wasted. But he remembered when he knew her, and Gloria kept asking him to come to training. He realized he'd met this loud woman again. But whatever. You could only hope this dumb bird would come through. Suddenly, someone in the group said the hotel was glowing, but they were told that hotel was a teleportation formation. Sal used his sword and opened the portal. The group, amazed, said, so this is what the Crystal City looks like. It's gorgeous, and somewhere in there is the legendary dragon egg. Suddenly, Isaac's family ordered them to eliminate the cutthroats, then the egg would be theirs. Sal turned and realized this was really bad. And the guy who pulled his sword from the portal hoped the chapter would reward him when they returned. Sal turned and started yelling at his men to get out of here faster. But things didn't go as planned. The boy and the others ended up inside the portal. Someone ordered the Light and Crystal City Guardian to attack the guys. The boy was shocked and yelled for his mom to help him. Gloria immediately went on the attack and said they were just pathetic trash. Gloria used her sword blade against their enemies. The boy was shocked to see Madam's face. Gloria asked who gave him permission to be an amateur. The boy said it was for the good of their home, but Gloria said she thought he was just doing it for himself. The boy immediately warned Madam she was being attacked from behind. But Gloria didn't have time to react, and Sal launched a powerful attack and saved her life. While Sal was surrounded by multiple enemies at once, he raised his sword and turned to the shadows, ordering them to prepare for battle. The shadows heard his order and replied it was accepted. Immediately, they plunged their swords into the ground and unleashed their magic. The magic was so strong, it seeped through the portal to aid Sal, and the enemies were wrapped in magical shadow hands. Sal decided they wanted to see which was better, their light power, or his shadow. The Izarak family warriors said they captured the guards with such ease. That's the Cooper family style, a mix of swordsmanship and magic. And this Sal is just a kid, but he's got so much power. Gloria looked at him with admiration and thought he was really talented. Sal wiped out all the enemies in one strike, but the shadows were helping too. Seizing the gift, he managed to seize the power of the crystal core, and now, he'd gone from a Silverblade Guardian to a Master of the Golden Sword. Looking ahead, he saw a door, and inside was a crystal-shaped key he'd obtained. When he put it back in place, everything started shaking. The shadow guys were surprised and asked, is this an earthquake? Sal said no, it was the altar falling. You have to hold on tight immediately because the secret passage to the dragon's lair is open. When they descended into the dungeon, Sal said this was the dragon's lair. The whole place was filled with dragon piss. The shadow group guy asked, now, there's nothing left to do, right? But the warrior immediately ordered him to push them back as fast as possible. Sal thought they were idiots. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. This can't be happening. 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 This can't be real. 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 How can someone like him ruin the king's contract and still ask for favors? Sal said Isaac was exactly what he needed. He could solve all his problems. Seeing the blade in his hands, he was surprised and thought there really was an S-tier talent in the Cooper family. Sal punched and said since he couldn't break the marriage contract, maybe it was better to get rid of that lowlife. What would the Duke say to that? The Duke did as he was told, not knowing how to respond to this guy. A month later, the Duke told Madame everything was ready. The only problem was Sal himself was missing. He wasn't with the other bastards. Hera said she understood and told the servant he was free to leave. The bastard in the group said he really didn't get why he called them all here, just to remind them they were brainless dogs to him and he was their master. The guy said he was the only one worthy to lead the Cooper family. After all, no matter how you looked at it, he was the only one with an S-tier talent. But the other jerk asked them to keep it down because the master might hear them. The bastards approached Chief Cooper, and one said all the guests were already in place and, on his orders, they'd set a table so he wouldn't have to wait. Suddenly, Isaac appeared and told Duke Cooper it was a coincidence. He asked if he wanted to talk a bit. Leon replied he didn't remember inviting him. Isaac shot back that after all, it was the coming-of-age party for his future bro-in-law. He wanted to join the party and have some fun too. At that moment, Sal stood behind the wall and announced everything was set. He was ready to activate the box. Sia said he understood. Sia ran to the guys and ordered them to open the abyss gates and erase the thousands of shadow illusions. All the warriors laid their swords on the box and demanded it be opened immediately. Suddenly, Alan approached him and said he finally found him. He asked Sal what he was doing there alone. Was he hiding from the others? But Adelia was having a terrible dream at that moment. Alan was chaining Sal up and pulling out his knife, telling him such a talent would now be his. Adelia saw it all unfold before her eyes and got really worried for him. But when she opened her eyes, she realized these were future dreams. The girl told her to stop dozing off and get to work. Adelia said she'd start right away. But suddenly, she activated the power of the stars. She looked up and realized it wasn't a dream. It was a vision from a past life. Back then, the power of the stars was a gift mages of time could unlock. Thanks to it, sorcerers could use star power to see fragments of the past or future. Adelia ran and saw Sal was in danger. She decided to stop Alan before he reached him. Suddenly, coming out of the bushes, she saw Alan say his father asked him to bring a glass of wine. Adelia found them and immediately applied her light of tranquility, the power of the stars, and ordered him to be put to sleep. Let Alan sleep for a few months. Suddenly, someone spotted her and immediately launched an attack. Hera realized it was her too and ordered the warriors to stop her. The warrior did his job perfectly and captured her. Hera immediately thought, didn't Doug say the experiment was a success? So why could she still use magic? But well, it wasn't the time to think about that. Let's focus on the ritual. Sal didn't even look at his glass and downed all the wine in one go, but he couldn't help dropping the glass on the floor. Alan started mocking him and calling him an idiot. He'd been tricked twice. After imprisoning him underground, Alan asked how he got the S-tier talent and how he managed to defeat the demonic dragon. Alan kept hitting him and asking how Gloria could have fallen for him. After all, everything was supposed to belong to him. Suddenly, Hera arrived and told her son to stop pouring his anger on Sal. Doug came straight over and said this dagger was specifically designed to pierce his indestructible body. Alan looked at it and said it wasn't bad. And what a shame his talent no longer belonged to him. Alan didn't even flinch and stabbed the dagger into his heart, shouting for him to die. Then he told him to cry and beg for mercy. He would still be the only rightful heir of the Cooper family. He had the greatest talent, immense mana, and an impenetrable body. No one could surpass him. But when he looked up, he thought of something very strange. Sal suddenly burst out laughing. He said it was a great show. Everyone was shocked and wondered how. Sal broke the chains and told Alan to open his eyes and see who fate was targeting. Sal didn't stay quiet long and, with a finger gesture, made them all enter the banquet hall. And everyone started shouting that Alan was crazy, doing that in front of everyone. So this is what the Cooper family's senior son is really like. And it turns out the rumors about his talent were false. Is such a man worthy of being the heir of an entire family? Then why wouldn't he take his place? Hera thought it was impossible. She couldn't understand how this boy knew what they were going to do to him. Had the ritual test failed? But since things weren't going as planned, it was crucial to get out somehow. Alan started yelling at them, saying they were all wrong, that Sal had trapped him. Isaac started clapping and declared, "What a performance." But what would Duke Cooper say? Leon looked at his son and spoke gruffly. But Alan couldn't explain anything. Hera took it philosophically and said she was the one who pushed Alan to do it. If he wants to punish someone, might as well punish me. But Leon didn't do anything to her and, approaching his son, immediately slapped him hard. Sal looked at the whole situation and said it was cruel. Alan asked, "What's he wrong about? He's just a pathetic bastard. Nothing that belongs to him is rightfully his." Hera tried to calm him down and ordered him to shut up. They were already saying Duke Cooper was a native himself. He reached such heights thanks to his personal army and never hid it, but his own son spoke so openly about it. And what will happen now to the Duke's reputation? Leon stood in front of his son, drew his sword, and asked if he had said everything. Pointing his sword, he turned to his children and told them to listen carefully. And he said today marked the start of the inheritance race. The bastards were shocked and immediately understood what it meant. They could all fight for the right to be heir. By any means necessary, no restrictions, the winner takes all. Leon ordered them to finish Alan off first. Isaac laughed again and asked, "Is this the legendary spirit of the Cooper family or the Prime Force?" He had finally sensed it. But the good news is, it's over. They're going to break their marriage contract now. He won't allow his sister to marry a man who only knows how to talk. A weakling. Leon turned around and realized what had just happened was clearly the work of the illusion box. Isaac was obviously in cahoots with this kid. Many other nobles were gathered at the feast. Any rumor coming from them would only harm them. So, we should calm down for now and postpone this matter. Leon told him not to worry, that he would discuss everything with His Majesty and contact them afterward. Isaac shook his hand and replied that was exactly what he expected from the wise head of the Cooper family. Leon turned to Sal and said, "As far as I'm concerned, anyone can fight for their right to the inheritance, but no one can disgrace the family name by their actions. And the intruder will disappear without a trace." Sal asked him, "Do you think he wants to be the heir? If the boss wants to kill him, let him do it now." And he slammed him down, then grabbed the sword and squeezed it until it bled. Leon was surprised and didn't understand what this guy really wanted. But sheathing his sword, he decided that was enough. The warrior asked the Lord if he was sure he didn't want to teach him a lesson. Leon said no, he's a pretty tough guy, and he wondered what he would do next. But this guy has a nasty attitude, and he doesn't even know who he is. After the ceremony, Hera went home. She asked the servant where the leak came from. Who told this kid about their plan? Doug replied that he didn't know either. But the warrior approached the mistress and asked what to do with the maid. Hera said to throw her to the monster. But suddenly, she remembered Adalia had recently used magic. It could be due to the failure of the magic deprivation experiment. Or maybe she wasn't deprived of anything at all. Hera looked at Doug and asked, "He took her talent, right? So maybe she could show it to him right away." Doug said his art was so high he still couldn't master it. He asked the lady for some time, and he immediately wondered if the lady understood. But Hera said it wasn't necessary, and ordered the warrior to finish her off. The warriors began dragging her away, and Doug shouted for her to listen. That was the culprit who forced her to do it. But Hera showed no mercy, and executed her on the spot. She claimed the dog betrayed his master, and was killed for it. Why all these pointless explanations? Hera stepped closer to the girl, and said she preferred to use her art and find a way better use for it. Hera grabbed her by the throat, and noticed there were no burns. Asterisk. Does that mean she has the body of an ice moon? Asterisk, Thiel thought. Girls with that body become boosters as adults. A man who becomes a booster's partner can increase his strength through her. Saul was absent this morning and didn't think the family head would keep Alan in the family after revealing his true colors publicly, combined with his lack of talent. He thought maybe it was because of Alan's mother's influence and the family's power. But why was he allowed to stay at the castle? To control him? Or to keep him from running away? But she didn't have to worry. He wouldn't leave until he made Alan suffer all the pain he endured in his past life. Saul suddenly turned around and heard shouting. He thought, "Is that Adelia?" He said to let the guest through since the door was open. Gloria entered and said her senior brother told her she had to return the box. She had free time and decided to come get it herself. Saul realized that if he could get the Isaac family's support, even if he personally finished Alan, something could happen. Gloria asked what he was thinking about. "She's still here, actually." Saul replied he was just thinking. He said their families were politically equal, but he wondered why the coffin, which only creates illusions under very strict conditions, was his family's legacy. Gloria pretended to be super important and asked if he was interested. She didn't want to say it before he was, but suddenly Saul turned and said goodbye. She decided no one believed that legend and all aristocrats already knew it, so she was going to use it to convince Saul to make a deal. But even then, Saul kicked her out. He didn't even say a word goodbye. Gloria shouted she wanted to fight him. Saul decided to face her. Right after, they went to the arena where Gloria lunged at him, but Saul raised his sword and quickly blocked her attack. Gloria was shocked, but turned around and saw the sword in front of her. Saul said she lost again, and she didn't stand a chance. She herself asked him not to hold back and, as per their agreement, she had to reveal the secret of the illusion box. Gloria said it was just a legend, and no one really knows if it's true or not. Saul, curious, asked what the legend was. Gloria said it was said that a person mastering star power and time magic could use the box to resurrect someone else, at the cost of their own effort. Then Saul realized that in his past life, Adelia sacrificed her life to bring him back to this world. And now, he had to not only avenge her death but also take care of his savior. He wouldn't let that monster Alan get to him again. Suddenly, the boys rushed in and shouted to Mr. Saul that they had bad news. Mrs. Adelia had been kidnapped. Saul immediately got angry and asked who did it. "Tell them to show up fast." The boys said last night, while preparing the box, they saw Mrs. Adelia being taken by Mrs. Cooper's men. Gloria also said she heard from other maids that the young master took Mrs. Adelia into his service. And soon, when she came of age, she would be his concubine. She first thought it was Saul, referring to the young man. Saul immediately ran and shouted he was going to finish Alan. Gloria also asked the guy why they were both standing. With that look, Sal clearly wasn't coming to save but to kill. Let them chase him. Alan was furious from the start, shouting, "How dare that bastard humiliate him like that in front of all those nobles? He was going to die the most horrible death in the world." The warrior presented the food and asked the Lord to calm down. Didn't the lady tell him to wait until he came of age? And only then, decide everything. Alan got angry, kicked the man, and ordered him to kill him immediately. But the warrior stepped forward and told the nobleman he had heard that Lady Adelia, captured by her mother, really liked Sal Cooper. Why shouldn't he take revenge on her for now? Alan was thrilled and said that finally, one of them had a smart idea. Alan approached her and told her she was his beloved concubine. He promised that under his careful guidance, she would become a professional scout. Adelia was scared and wondered what to do. Her chains held all her magical power. She couldn't break free. But where was Sal? Who was coming to save her? Alan looked at her and saw her pitiful face. He wondered what she'd look like between his legs. Alan told her she better get used to her role as concubine, and fast. But Sal came running and jumped at him with a flying kick. Alan didn't even have time to turn around and collapse to the ground. Without mercy, Sal kicked him right in the sensitive parts. Alan immediately screamed in pain, clutching his balls. But Sal didn't stop there and went to finish him off. Each hit was so strong and sharp that Alan's bones just shattered. At that moment, Sal transformed into a monster. Alan was just begging for help. The warriors also joined the fight to protect their master, but Sal didn't even notice them and killed them one by one. The guys told Mr. Sal this was serious. Gloria let Adelia out and told her to act fast before he turned into a demon again. Adelia ran and immediately started calming him down. She hugged him and told him to wake up, and he was fine. Sal turned around and saw Adelia, happy to see her. The warriors had just grabbed Mr. Allen and were trying to carry him away. Hera also entered the room and was shocked to see her son in such a state. Hera started yelling at Sal, calling him fat. Was this how he thanked his father for letting him stay at the castle? Sal grabbed the chain and turned it into a sword. Adelia, scared, looked at him, but he didn't stop and kept moving forward. Seeing him approach, Hera was stunned and asked what he was doing. Sal, wounded in the arms and bleeding from Alan's head, introduced himself and said he challenged him to a death match, until the last drop of blood. After all, he couldn't allow such a threat to Adelia's life to keep living in this world. And so, 7 days later, in the Joust arena, Sal told his opponent that he didn't expect him to actually show up instead of spending those 7 days running. Alan was surprised and asked why he would pass up such a chance to crush him, like a pathetic bug. Sal saw Alan had a shield that gave him goosebumps. The duel was immediately declared. Alan immediately used the Medusa's petrifying ray attack. Shocked by the speed of the attack, Sal started dodging. Sal asked, "What is this? And why was the Golden Swordmaster jumping like a monkey?" Suddenly, he saw a clue in front of him and said that sword mages' levels were honored swordmasters. He realized the Shadow Oath wouldn't help against the Medusa's shield. After all, petrification didn't even count as damage, so he couldn't repel it with his oath. That meant he had to destroy it. Alan turned to him and said, "Who would have thought that by depriving him of his breakthrough blade, he'd give him a Medusa shield? And that's the difference between the one favored by fate and the one who resists it. It's useless for him to act. He can do nothing." Sal leapt to attack, but Alan immediately launched a Medusa attack. Alan waited for his moment and gave the signal for Medusa to strike. Sal dodged the blow and used his sword to cut Medusa in half. Alan was furious to see the guy had done the opposite, but Sal didn't stop and kept attacking. Finally, a ring on Alan's finger was destroyed. Alan said he almost forgot. He was now the Golden Staff Mage. Alan pointed at them and ordered them to devour him, and he used the devouring curse. Isaac saw this and said that guy was a bastard. After all, it would take the souls of thousands of innocents to use that magic. Turning to Leon, he said he expected an explanation. Leon replied it was a family secret. He asked him to respect their tradition. Alan shouted at his opponent that he was an idiot, and he even refused to dodge. So, let him enjoy the pain. Alan saw it was all over and said it wasn't working. Impossible. Impossible. He had practiced this art hundreds of times. After all, there was no way to get through without getting hit. Alan used the spirits again and ordered them to kill him. The spirits surrounded him from all sides, but Alan was stunned that their attacks didn't leave a scratch. Sal told the guys they'd fought enough and were dying. Alan smiled and said he was his shadow. And where did that idea come from? But Sal activated the shadow damage transfer. Alan asked if he could touch him. Then drops of clear G liquid fell on the guys in the stands. Alan asked, "How's this possible?" Sal realized he'd forgotten the oath automatically transferred all damage to his shadows. Alan raised his staff and asked, "What is this?" Did he really care about these bastards' lives? Sal didn't know why, but he'd managed to escape the Shadow Oath's influence. Still, there was no way out for him. Alan said since that was the case, he'd ruin their lives by attacking his own men. And he slowly started feeding off those bastards' strength. Alan became a monster and told the guy to look at himself. Giving up already? Too bad it didn't stop him. All those bastards deserved this fate. Sal said he refused to become a beast like him, and he decided to use the forbidden blood formation magic. Using it against him, Alan began losing his power and was shocked not to understand why. The bastards cheered right after the staff shattered, saying the life force was back. And it was Sal who did all that. Just then, a massive dragon started swirling above the arena. Sal told Alan to savor his last breath. Sal asked the dragon if it was crazy too. Isaac was shocked and said it was the legendary dragon armor. Does it really exist? Gloria asked her bro what he was talking about. Isaac said that according to legend, taming a demon dragon can create a true spiritual bond between it and its master. Under strong emotions, the dragon can change form and boost all its master's abilities. The dragon fully armored its master, and Sal donned dragon armor. Alan was shocked and said it was impossible. Simply impossible. Even with the blessing of that little creature, he'd never get along with it. Alan decided it had to be another illusion. He was going to dispel it now, so he used the Great Curse attack. Sal thought and said what helped them understand and get closer was hating him. Sal just flapped his dragon wings and easily pushed back Alan's attack. Alan lost an arm and screamed in terrible pain. Sal said that arm was used to steal the talents of innocence. At that moment, Hera was very worried about her son. But Leon told her to sit down. Alan had told him he was just a bastard. And how dare he do that? Sal kept attacking and said it was for all those shadows who died for him and for himself. Someone who killed him in a past life had taken away his natural gift. For all the evil he'd done in the past, present, and future. He might already be in hell. But suddenly, Hera entered the fight and pushed back his attack. Leon asked what she was doing. This fight is a sacred duel, a family tradition. Alan was completely battered and said he was in pain. Isaac said his noble lady Hera was once a magnificent S-rank mage and he'd be honored to see her on the battlefield, especially after marrying Lord Brad. She had used a magical artifact to build the 8-circle sacred barrier. Could the rumor be true that she lost her magic powers when the former Cooper family head was killed? Hera wasted no time and used the 9 circles of the white magic sacred spear. She said she knew he'd become a monster, and she should have finished him off when he was still a kid. Now, she'd fix her mistake. But Leon decided not to watch and ordered them to stop all this immediately. Hearing the order, Hera's staff shattered into tiny pieces. Sal also retracted his armor. Isaac said, as expected from a silent swordsman, nothing could control his forbidden cry. Leon approached them and told the guy he had no place in the Cooper family. He immediately ordered her to pack her things and leave. Sal told his dad he'd regret that decision, but Hera was just as furious and asked her husband to let her finish him off. Leon told her to leave his property, or she'd regret it. Sal turned around and told his men it was time to go. On the way, Isaac asked the boy if he wanted to join his family. Sal replied he didn't have to come along, and he realizes he's now a pariah, right? Isn't this basically a direct declaration of war on the Cooper family? Sal thought for a moment and said he couldn't join his family, but he could offer them a deal. Isaac was surprised and asked what he meant. Sal said the king was in his final days. War between the aristocrats was inevitable, but he could guarantee that if he got into the Royal Academy, he'd be the first to hear the latest news from the capital. Isaac told the guy he was pretty calculating. Did he want his help getting into the academy? But why trust him all of a sudden? Sal realized that since he had an S-tier scrims talent, he had to use his tattoos. Sal said he could become a disciple of Chris, the silent sacred blade. Isaac was surprised and asked, "The same Chris?" At that moment, Chris opened his eyes and asked, "Who else remembers me?" And he is the silent sacred blade. A few days later, on the outskirts of St. Goar, Sal asked the man if he could see his 3 towers in the distance. That's St. Goar's security barrier, the Holy Trinity. If you see them far off, we're close to the city. Isaac said he should warn him that even outside the academy, St. Goar was full of other aristocrats. So he'd better be careful. Sal realized he couldn't trust this guy at all. He'd stab him in the back if it benefited his family. He needed to find a way to get rid of him as soon as possible. Isaac told him not to worry. He'd make sure he got into the Royal Academy. Lady Adelia would be his servant so they could live together. As for his soldiers, they could temporarily serve as guards for Isaac's family manors, protecting their homes from thieves. When Sal heard about thieves, he thought this was his chance. Isaac said that although they were called mere thieves, they were known as the aristocrats' dark hands in St. Goar, making things complicated. Sal ran over and told them to leave the thieves to him. Isaac asked, "What about Lady Adelia?" Sal said she'd only be a hindrance now. and that Mr. Isaac should come with him to the Royal Academy. Gloria turned to her bro. But Isaac said the first thing was to settle this kid's family on the estate. At that moment, Sal arrived in the forest thicket. He thought that after Angela's story in his past life, she must have been captured by bandits around age 7. But his father's sacred blade, created, had been searching for his daughter for years and was ready to do anything to save her. And if he managed to rescue her from captivity, he'd have a shot at becoming his apprentice. Sal immediately summoned his dragon and donned iron armor. He didn't hide and flew over the students during their training. Sal descended on them and, after taking down a few guys, used the first inherited scrims technique. Blood shadow flicker, ***. After that, he charged and used the second inherited scrims technique. ***, unleashed blood, serpent feast, ***. But Plon, the bandit leader, was the strongest and engaged Sal in battle. The boy turned and easily parried his attack. Sal wasted no time and used the third inherited scrims technique. ***, blood shadow decapitation, ***. Plon was shocked to see the blood demon sword. He asked, "Is he from the Cooper family? Doesn't he know that?" But Sal didn't let him finish and cut off his head with his sword. Sal said they were just a bunch of evil creatures. He didn't care. Mayo immediately flew off. Mayo backed up and perched on his master's shoulder. Sal asked what was wrong. Had he found the place he asked for? Mayo shook his head, saying he had. Sal ordered him to show the way. Upon arrival, Sal grabbed the stone head and opened the dungeon. The girl came down and asked if he'd come to save her. Sal replied he was there to take her back to her father. He wanted to become his apprentice. He remembered Angela saying that since childhood, she could read a man's intentions and tell if he was lying. The girl held out her hand and said the guy wasn't lying and that she'd go with him. Sal slowly approached the exit and said he wouldn't let them leave. Monsters appeared in front of them, blocking their way out. The monster was made of bones. Sal told Angela that the big guy at the entrance was unbelievably strong. He could only block one of his attacks. So, when they moved forward, they'd distract him and she'd run for her life. He realized that the attack of a 4-meter-tall skeleton matched the strength of a master swordsman who stood 5 meters tall. Sal turned to the dragon and said this time, they were risking their lives. He told Angela to get ready. Angela told her bro not to worry, and that she was ready. Sal ran outside and launched his attack. But the skeleton was so huge that with its bones, it just dropped its arm and tried to push back Sal's attack. Sal held it back and shouted at Angela to run immediately. The girl fled into the woods right away. Sal said the dragon's armor had another ability, and it was time to test its powers. Sal turned to the dragon and ordered it to remove its armor. This skill instantly separates the armor from its wearer's body, unleashing all the accumulated magical power. Sal said a simple skeleton wouldn't stand in the way of his revenge. Now all that was left was to grab Angela and get out of here together. The skeleton used its circular attack and ordered the men to die. But at that moment, the circle was aimed at Angela. The circle turned into a bomb that immediately caught fire. Mayo grabbed Angela and saved her, but suddenly, Mayo couldn't hold her anymore and let her go. Sal then ran and caught up with Angela. He rescued her and explained it was a sealed magic formation. To escape, they had to destroy its core. But as long as that thing chased them, they wouldn't find peace. Angela told her bro that was the cannonball he'd mentioned. Could it be in a place forbidden to all? Sal said of course and asked if she knew such a place. Angela replied that after her release from the dungeon, there were only 3 forbidden places. This one was the closest, over there. Sal was hyped and said he'd start searching with her. This skeleton, though strong, was pretty slow. However, from long range, it could launch magic projectiles just as powerful. Sal burst into the room and said he wasn't wearing armor right now. One single shell could seriously injure him. Sal looked around the room and said it was clearly reinforced, but it wouldn't last long. Suddenly, Angela told her bro that the bow was calling her. Sal said he understood and told her to watch him, only him. Just then, a lightning bolt shot through the room, landed in Angela's hands, and transformed into a bow. Sal asked, "Is this a blessing from the sylphs?" Angela said yes. That big monster would be here soon, but it was already heading somewhere else. Angela showed her bro where the second place was, and they ran toward it. But the skeleton didn't give up and kept chasing them. Sal burst into the second room and announced he'd found it, and it was here. But then, they saw a huge orb in front of them. Sal wondered if it was the sorcerer who'd created this rogue skeleton and ordered it to self-destruct. Sal told him his next meeting might drive him crazy. If that happened, he had to escape at all costs. Angela told him not to worry. She believed in him. Sal transformed into a demon and decided to use the power of the sword. He used the 4th technique of the hereditary scrims, his bloodbath. The orb standing there suddenly began to collapse. But the demon who'd taken Sal's soul declared it now belonged to him. Angela saw this and was terrified for her bro. After all, she'd seen it with her own eyes. Meanwhile, in St. Gore capital, at the Royal Academy, Chris had simply sat in front of the door and dozed off. A servant came to the Lord and reported that the second prince's soldiers had left the city. Should he send men to chase them? Chris asked. And the other Sander, has he left? Then he added, have a servant clean up after his wine. He'll definitely come back to check it himself. The servant took the wine and announced that the master was finally free. Meanwhile, in the bandit camp, Sal was out of breath and lost his focus. Angela looked at her bro, saw he wasn't responding, and realized her master was no longer himself. She lifted the little girl into the air to keep her safe. But Angela had taken several hits, and seeing her bro's face, she didn't know how to bring him back to his senses. Suddenly, the dragon saw the master starting to overreact and unleashed its blazing flames. But Sal responded the same way to his pet and drew his sword. The griffin approached the girl and defended her. But Angela remembered Sal saying his next encounter could drive him mad. If that happened, he had to escape at all costs. Angela decided to save him and shot an arrow into the sky. She was sure he would survive. Angela fired an arrow but missed. Furious, Sal attacked her with his sword. But the griffin and dragon stepped in to protect her. Sal started talking and asked what this pretty young apple was. He even wondered which part to taste first. Angela collapsed to the ground under her bro's neck and couldn't move. But Sal showed no mercy. He grabbed her by the throat, lifted her up, and pressed his sword to her neck. Sal said it was such pure blood. He wanted to open her chest and let her body grow stronger. Angela told her bro not to lose it. He'd done all he could. But Sal was chained by the monster at that moment. He suddenly opened his eyes, turned to the blood demon, and ordered it not to go any further. The demon replied it was impossible, that he couldn't wake up on his own or stop resisting. The inevitable couldn't be stopped. His will would obey. Sal replied that indeed, his own will was weak. However, one thing would be enough. He raised his sword above his head and decided to use the bloodsucker, but the demon screamed at him not to do it. He would destroy himself. And even if he survived, he'd never be a swordsman again. Sal told him not to worry. Chris would soon help him fix this. And he already had. The demon replied that by putting his hopes in others, he was dooming himself to inevitable failure. At that moment, Sanders' squad assassin hovered over Sal's body. The assassin said, "Here's the young man who caused so much trouble for His Majesty." Raising his knife, he threatened to kill him. But Angela appeared in front of him and told him not to dare hurt her bro. The assassin felt his hand break and his knife shatter into pieces. He asked what had happened. Suddenly, his father appeared before Angela and told her she had suffered a lot these past years. To forgive him for being late. To come with him and go home. Angela said no. "You can't leave your bro here." The man told the boy he could help him get treated if he wanted. Sal replied he wanted much more. After all, he'd risked everything to save Angela. And to be his heir. The man stepped closer and said he had finally saved her with his own hands. Sal replied that even if his recklessness caused minor complications, he had ultimately managed to free her from the second prince's grip, right? 7 days later, the Royal Academy declared that even though he wasn't fully recovered, he had already alerted the whole city. He would be its future heir. Sal asked if he was now the Academy's #1 enemy. The man said he could give up his future title and new mentor any time. People were starting to say Sal had betrayed his bro. Didn't he lie to Chris to become his apprentice? Sal declared he wanted to accomplish way more than just leaving a legacy. But a few angry students wouldn't stop him. Suddenly, William, an ordinary student, stepped forward and raised his sword, claiming he was the killer of his comrades. A vagabond who dared to trick Master Chris. And now, William challenged him to a duel, where he'd lose all that undeserved honor. Sal saw it was a bloodthirsty prayer that even all the other enemies around him couldn't silence. Prince Sunderst, Lord of the Bandits. So, what's their plan? Use William's sense of justice to turn him against them? William told the boy that if he dared refuse this duel, all he had to do was leave Master Chris and give up the heir title. Sal signaled he'd also been used in a past life to be provoked into a duel, and he couldn't believe it was happening again. But it would go down like before. Sal said he accepted the challenge. But if he lost, he swore loyalty to him until death. The guys backed William and begged him to strike. They made it clear only the best of the best could join the Imperial Academy, not bastards. William lunged at Sal and shouted for him to defend himself. He used Imperial swordsmanship to slash sharply. Sal countered with a bloody demonic sword technique, the blood cut. He leaned over him and told William to give up, that he was no match. But William refused to quit and unleashed the Imperial sword art. Chi blast. Sal thought it was unfair. After all, William had interrupted his attack. He couldn't reuse his damn blood cut for another second. William refused to back down and tried to finish him with his sword. But Sal dodged. Sal realized this was William's strongest technique. Had he really learned it while still at the academy? William spun around, and with a punch, shouted for him to surrender and repent his deception. He immediately used the chopping technique. Chris watched the fight, and said blood magic was very different from other magic schools. At this point, the best Sal could do was use the silver sword's second master-level skill. Sal mentally apologized to his teacher. After all, for recognition and loyalty to William, he was willing to take that risk. William struck hard, and declared it was over. Sal turned and used the blood demon technique with the me-blood blades. William turned and saw multiple attacks heading his way. Everyone yelled for him to turn back. William saw the sword and asked, "Is swordsmanship capable of that?" Sal told him he was his honest and loyal William. It was so nice to see that funny expression on his face again. Sal's eyes instantly turned red and he laughed loudly like a demon. William immediately knew something was wrong with Sal's state. What should he do now? Everyone else used their power against him, seeing he was using blood magic. And as expected from this monster, he was using forbidden techniques. The warriors also prepared to attack, chanting with demonic power. How many innocents had this man killed? He had to be destroyed immediately. The guys told William it wasn't his problem. He wouldn't sacrifice himself to save this monster's life, right? William stopped them and said after losing the duel, he swore loyalty until death. Even if he was truly a bad man, he'd protect him to the end. Chris approached and said he was just as troubled as when he was younger. He knocked him out with a punch. Chris said Imperial Academy students shouldn't be petty and duel a wounded man. But, he reassured, once Sal was back to normal, they'd fight as much as they wanted. The guys were shocked and said they were scared, like he was ready to kill them any time. They felt like they were already dead. The second heir of the Hava family, Moran Hava, turned to the prince and asked what to do now. The Empire's second prince, Sandro Richard, said he heard Sal came on a noble's recommendation, and that he'd head to the main exam hall. Richard wondered if he really used blood magic, a perfect magic school for suicide. Adelia also turned to Professor Cassadine and said she wanted to help Sal, since she alone could handle the demon tormenting him. Cassadine told her not to be foolish, and that it was better to stay away. After all, he practiced evil blood magic. Adelia asked the professor if he hadn't said a magic school didn't determine if a mage was good or bad. Cassadine replied that was true. A person's character had nothing to do with their chosen magic school. However, his magic was completely different from ordinary blood magic. Chris scolded him then, saying if Sal wanted to master the bloody sword art perfectly through blood magic, he had to be in perfect physical and mental condition. He realized Sal had worked non-stop for 7 days to help his body recover. He taught him to use the power of his own blood instead of chi to strengthen his body and wield the blood blades. But how was he going to thank him? By jumping into a stupid fight before fully healed? If he was dead set on destroying himself, who would take revenge on the culprits for all their crimes? Sal replied that was true. He wasn't stupid enough to commit suicide, but some things had to be done no matter what, right? Chris asked, even if he dies? Or if someone else dies? Sal said he also trusted his master and knew he wouldn't let his student go crazy and start killing everyone recklessly. Suddenly, George Brandon, the dean of the combat faculty at the academy, entered the room. Crayat asked what he was doing here. He wasn't welcome. George replied that he was actually standing outside the door, not inside. He told Sal he was a student recommended by the academy. According to the rules, he had exactly 1 week to pass the tests and prove he was worthy of joining the academy, and not to let Chris's whims interfere with the academy's work. Sal asked the master if he had a problem with him. Chris said yes, just an old stubborn man who, miraculously, hadn't died by his hand yet. As long as he followed the academy's rules, he didn't have to worry about him. Sal asked if it was better to finish all the tests as soon as possible. Chris replied he needed to prepare well. The old man would be leading them himself, so there was no reason to expect it to be easy. That night, at the dungeon entrance, Sandro announced that old George had prepared a dungeon for their dear Sal as a test. His mission was to poison the water before Cooper arrived. He'd go so crazy that Mr. Chris would have no choice but to kill him. The next day, Sal met William and told him he'd talk after receiving his mission. William said his next challenge would be too tough. Sal said yeah, he already knew. George had held a grudge against his master for a long time, meaning he was deliberately making things difficult. William replied it wasn't just that. The situation at the academy had become pretty complicated, with everyone gathered in the main hall. Entering the room, sitting by the door, was Philip, George's student and the student on duty. William had told Sal he was waiting for him. Sal approached Philip and said he wanted to participate in the trial. The boy asked his name and faculty. He replied his name was Sal, and he was from the combat department. Philip said he had apologized to the master, but there was an unexpected change in his trial dungeon. Its difficulty had been increased to extreme. It required a group of at least 4 people. William asked if he could modify the difficulty so a single person could complete it. Philip replied that the solo trial wouldn't be ready until the start of next week. However, according to Academy rules, Mr. Sal must pass a practical test within 3 days to officially become a full student. The guys started yelling at him to get lost. They didn't need assholes like him at the Imperial Academy. Philip asked Sal if he wanted to try finding people to join the group or quietly leave their academy in one piece. The dude asked Philip why he was even offering him anything. If it were him, he'd lock him up for 3 days to make sure he got kicked out for sure. Sal asked Philip if he thought he couldn't find a team. Philip replied he personally didn't care, he just didn't think the other students really wanted him in their ranks. He wanted even less to become one of those lapdogs like William. Sal was furious, and immediately put his sword in front of his face. Sal declared that if he could find his teammates, he'd kneel and apologize to William for such an insult. Philip told him not to even dream about it. If he wanted him to bow down, he'd have to kill him. Sal said he wouldn't kill him, but he'd tell the truth to Master Chris. And he wouldn't let his student get away with that. Philip told him he had to gather a team of 4 men before tonight. Sal replied that wasn't necessary since only 4 men were needed. Adlia stepped forward and said she was a magic student. Gloria also arrived and said she was a combat student. And they wanted to form a team with Sal. Sal approached Mr. Kozaglask to be nice and signed him up for the team. Then, he knelt and apologized. And since he wanted to make someone else's life harder, was he ready to risk his own? Everyone was shocked and wondered how he dared do that. But a villain will always be a villain. Philip was just following the rules, and he used Mr. Chris's reputation to intimidate him. William told the guy he didn't need to go that far, for his own good, Sal replied, reminding him that as long as they didn't mess up or do anything wrong, no idiot had the right to stand in their way. And he was never wrong. Philip, furious, told the professor he wanted to finish him off with his own hands. George advised him to mind his manners and not break the Academy's rules. He remembered the humiliation he suffered today and turned those feelings into fuel for his power. Then he could appear like death itself, incarnate, ready to take their life. When the time came, and he was no longer bound by the rules. The next day, they arrived at Melissa's jungle. The 4 of them fell silent in front of the gate. William said they were now in Milima's jungle, and according to legend, the legacy of this powerful witch was hidden somewhere here. However, although the Academy has owned this dungeon for hundreds of years, no student has ever found that legendary legacy. And the exit of this dungeon is through the lake at the very top of the local mountain. The foot of this mountain is the most dangerous part of the dungeon. It's home to monsters with nightmare-level power, capable of matching a master swordsman's strength. But near the summit, it's the opposite. Only low-level monsters. And by the lake, they don't attack anyone anymore. The fog in this jungle is toxic. A golden swordmaster can survive about 10 hours here thanks to their physical stats, while a mage of the same level, relying on their own mana, could only last 6 hours in combat. Sal suddenly ordered everyone to prepare for battle. Something was approaching. Suddenly, boys came running out of the forest, asking for help. They were being chased by a swarm of bees. William said it was a Melissa swarm. Not only are they extremely persistent, but killing them is pointless. It's better to stay away from them, and they'll leave. The girl replied it was useless. They'd been running for 20 minutes, changing direction multiple times, but the bees hadn't let up. Adelia realized they needed help and activated her defense. William said it sounded like a cat's purr and asked, "What kind of spell is that?" Sal replied they'd fled for 20 minutes without even having the guts to grab a sword and fight back. And they call themselves talented warriors? Sal immediately used his blood kite and aimed his attack straight at the flies. The beam's power was so fast and unexpected it cut through all the flies. Sal asked, "They don't even get stronger. What a useless monster." The boys cheered, saying they were finally saved. Sal asked if she wasn't ashamed to be saved by her rivals. The girl replied he was a village savage who didn't understand anything. Sal said, "How could a noble consider her, a pathetic bastard who can't inherit a title or even her own family name, as his rival? And if she had the brains to offer to escort them out, maybe she'd even offer to become his servant." The girl was surprised and asked, "What was that?" Gloria replied that the swarms must have attracted other monsters' attention. William told everyone to be careful. There was clearly something off about these monsters. Suddenly, a huge bear appeared in front of them. But Sal was already ready, and said it didn't matter. He was just going to wipe them all out. Sal knew that the bloodsword art was a special fighting style based on using blood magic, passed down through the Cooper family for generations. Since this style uses magical power in a physical way, the movements during combat become sharp and unpredictable, making defense nearly impossible. The bear couldn't block, took the hits, and was routed. Sal knew that, to get stronger, like warriors in physical training, there was only one thing: kill. Sal took a moment, and drove his sword into the bear's mouth. He demanded control over the blood and to use it. Then all that was left was to absorb and improve his own blood. That's blood magic. A simple blood mage can't develop their abilities this fast in combat because of their fragile body, but a blood swordsman isn't limited by that. Adalia also saw that Sal hadn't abandoned her and had saved her. He knew the amount of blood spilled didn't matter, because every drop only strengthened the one who mastered this art. The only problem with this style was that all the anger and hatred soaked into the blood never disappeared. Instead, they merged into the image of an immortal demon right inside the wine. An eternal, indestructible curse that only remarkable willpower could suppress. Adelia asked Sal if he was okay. Sal told her not to worry. Thanks to the crisis professor's treatment, high-level monsters were no problem for him. Sal watched all those monsters, and used his blood power on them. Adelia shielded herself to avoid getting hit. Gloria asked if it was the same as in the dragon's nest. Adelia said no, this was completely different. The girl asked if he was still worried about him. Anyone who uses blood magic is doomed to lose their mind. That's just how it goes. The first and second lords of the Cooper family went insane from the magic. Rumor has it the current boss became a master of silent blades to protect the whole family from its corrosive influence. Scared, Adelia asked for a star link to bind them. The girl said using such a spell on a madman was extremely dangerous. Terrified, Adelia entered Sal's inner world and met a demon. The demon said it turns out there are still people willing to risk their lives to save him. Adelia asked what he had done to Sal. The demon said he hadn't done anything. The boy had chosen this path himself. The Cooper family ancestor, creator of this monster, had just been killed by the creature. Could a deal be possible? He'd tell her how to save him, and in exchange, she'd let him plant the seed of a blood demon in her heart. Adelia immediately agreed. The demon laughed and asked why benefactors were always so stupid. Adelia promised to save him no matter what. She hugged him and ordered the starlight to purify him. She applied the starlight flow art. The girl said that at such a young age, she was already able to use 7th circle spells. How much time did she spend reading? They really have no private life. Gloria got angry, and addressing her like a noble lady, told her to come here to help or shut up. The demon told Sal he'd been saved again by a little girl. What a loser. If he hadn't promised that girl he'd be saved, he wouldn't have even thought about showing up in such a filthy place. And he'd only show it to him once, so he'd remember it well. He had to learn to understand the blood he absorbed, identify the current that stole his control, and get rid of it. If he let that bitch take control of his body again, he'd end up losing the girl he loved. Got it? The demon disappeared and finally said they'd meet again soon. Sal replied that next time, he'd regret their encounter. Then he offered a feast of blood snakes. In one swift move, he easily destroyed all the monsters standing before him. William was holding a huge crystal that slowly gathered the monster's power. The girl said a demigod-level master had arrived at the dungeon. Apparently, the Academy had realized they were in trouble and sent a professor after them. Sal asked why bother suddenly sending a master of that level. Had something serious happened in the dungeon? Anyway, no matter what, he had to finish the trial. The master then used his sword and, after signaling, began destroying the monsters. It turned out to be Oliver, a sword instructor master from the Imperial Academy, a demigod order sword master. Oliver declared the only thing left to do was to come back with the bastard's head, so His Highness Sandro would owe him. Oliver realized that with the help of this artifact, specially designed by the magic department to detect blood magic users, he could easily find this kid and finish him off. Sal asked William if he knew why the demigod level existed. Had they invented it just to make him look more pathetic? Oliver saw he had saved those guys by coming. Since there were other students here, it was impossible to contact him directly. Suddenly, the boys saw Oliver's professor and asked if he had come to get them out of here. Oliver decided there was nothing to do. After all, he's a good professor, and everyone likes him. He'll eliminate the villain responsible for the dungeon anomaly, and they'll even thank him for it. Suddenly, Sal noticed something, and Professor Oliver immediately launched an attack, ordering him to die. Oliver declared that this kid should be happy to be honored with death by a master swordsman's blade. Sal dodged and asked what the demigod level meant. Is it like a gold swordmaster level, able to use swordmaster level attacks? And are they all like this at the academy? It made so much noise, but it was really nothing. Oliver was surprised and said he had never died. And blood magic? What? So he's gonna kill him again. Oliver realized the blood demon image had trained him to detect any poison in the bloodstream, instead of just toxins. He channeled his movement through his body. Sal dodged the attack and saw the power spreading through his body. That let him anticipate all his moves. If he mastered this art perfectly, he could even copy others' moves and techniques in the future. But Sal countered with a cat-like purr. William wasn't holding back either and lunged at Oliver with an imperial strike. Oliver just used his sword to push the boy's attack away. He realized Sal wasn't that easy to kill, and William was still fighting with all his might. Looks like he'd have to take advantage of that. Oliver stopped toying with them and used his attack to order both of them to die. The sonic attack was way more interesting, and a huge dragon appeared before them. Oliver figured the students would thank him for giving them such an unusual exercise, right? The boys got scared too and yelled that Oliver wanted to kill them, and that was impossible. Professor Oliver would never do that. But he just used a teleport scroll and escaped. A crazy traitor. One of them grabbed his head and said, "And he still has to make money, succeed, and start a family. He can't die." And the other told him he had to fight. During the fight, Sal asked William to block the monster's blows. The boy said he would, but the 4 dragons were just unbearable and attacked the boys. However, Sal told Adaly and Gloria to protect the losers. They witnessed it. Adaly tried to use her powers and created a wall. Gloria yelled that her magic would be way stronger if she stopped giving it names like that. During the battle, Sal shouted at William to give him the crystal. William said it was a test, and even if he died, he'd still fail. Sal realized the monster was catastrophic in scale. He was sure that using the Shadow Blood Blade technique, the demon would take control of his body. What if he only used skills below silver level, he thought. Sal told William to focus on himself. He'd need time. William started fighting one of the dragons and slowly distracted it while the Lord did his work. But the dragon started getting stronger and, in the middle, a huge dragon appeared, the strongest of them all. William didn't hold back and applied the Imperial closing slash. He was already at his limit and asked Sal how much longer he'd need to collect blood. Sal prepared himself and said he'd need a few more seconds, but then Gloria launched the Blade Dance extermination attack. After a while, she felt sick and passed out. Adaly saw Gloria fall and called for help. Sal had suddenly already fully prepared and said the beast's fate had come. He immediately launched the Fire Serpent Strike and tried to kill the dragons in one blow. Sal didn't even look back, wondering if this was the end. The dragon slowly started burning as it approached the boys. But one of them, Louis, told Sal he was a demon using blood magic, a villain who betrayed his family and was ready to kill his comrades. William heard this and yelled at him to stop. Louis raised his sword to the sky, and everyone thought he was going to attack. But Louis knelt and told his classmate Sal that without his help, he'd already be dead. He asked him to accept his sincere apologies. The other boys also asked him to accept their apologies and thanks. Suddenly, a girl shouted at them, "Let's see what this is." Looking up, they saw a swarm of flies approaching. Sal immediately used his sharp sight. He understood there was clearly a mystery behind these flies. Sal told Adaly to protect herself and the others, and to leave this to him. She immediately used the purple lightning attack. But Sal headed toward the water, and the Mai tried to attack him with underwater lightning. He said he now understood that Melissa's so-called SM was nothing more than a simple tool to assemble her life force. Their true goal was to resurrect the witch, Milima, using a magical ritual and that heart, once again, with dark magic. The kind of monster that would take everything from others just to survive. He then used the Blood Serpent Strike. It hit the heart. The guys around them started cheering and said they felt their energy returning. They felt way better. They saw a dungeon gate open nearby. Sal looked and said he didn't even expect to find an exit by chance. What happened in this dungeon had to stay secret. Otherwise, not only would His Highness's plan to unify the Academy suffer, but so would he. Oliver thought it could always get worse. The dungeon gate opened, but who survived? This time, he had zero margin for error. He wouldn't leave anyone alive. After Sal got out of the water, Adaly got excited and asked if he was okay. Sal replied, like he did with everyone, that his physical and magical powers were restored. He also found some items at the bottom of the lake. Adaly looked and said, "This crystal vial smelled like monster poison. So that's what poisoned them. You don't see crystal vials often." Back at the academy, he'd question his professor about it. He'd probably be told how to find the culprit. Sal said he'd trust him then. William looked at it and said, "Judging by its size, it must be a catastrophic-level magic crystal dropped by a 5-headed dragon." It was a shame they had to waste the past crystal, but they couldn't stay in this toxic fog any longer. This was his trial. Suddenly, a warrior approached and told them to take it. It was a crystal he'd managed to recover during his own test, and Sal would pass it. The others told him to take theirs too, and they thanked him a lot. William was thrilled, since Sal had finally been accepted by everyone with flying colors. Oliver decided what happened in this dungeon had to stay secret. Otherwise, not only would His Highness's Unifil Academy project suffer, but so would his. And could it still get worse? The dungeon gate opened, and he wondered who survived. But this time, he had zero margin for error. He wouldn't let anyone live. Oliver saw them come out, jumped on Sal, and asked why he couldn't just die in this dungeon. Sal was surprised and said it didn't matter, but he dodged and used his bloody flash. Adele asked the young man if he was okay. Gloria also shouted that he was rushing to his rescue. Sal used his bloody vision and said this time he'd finish it for good. But Oliver didn't stop and yelled at the guy that he was a venomous bastard. To hell with him. Sal attacked too and said he'd be the only one dying here. He used a punch to push Oliver back. But suddenly, a man stood between them and ordered them to stop immediately. George asked Oliver what he was doing. George was angry because Oliver broke the rules. He was only making things harder. And for the second prince's mission, the lives of several students were worthless. The warriors were surprised and asked, "What other poisoner?" The young girl turned to George and asked if he had proof. George replied it was a magic scroll personally created by the Academy's rector. It detects the scent of poison. If any of them had used this poison, the scroll would find them. The scroll moved closer to the crystal at that moment. The guys were shocked and started wondering, did he really do it? No way, he just saved them. Or maybe he deliberately used the poison to raise the challenge and then just took the chance to save them and restore his reputation. Are there really people this shameless and pathetic in the world? George thought they were a bunch of pathetic trash. They were so easily fooled. And what can you expect from those destined to be mere pawns in this life? George asked the guys if they had anything to say in their defense. Sal replied that if he wanted to accuse someone, he always had an excuse. But if he thought he'd surrender without a fight, he was dreaming. George lost it and immediately grabbed him by the throat. Sal saw the old man was lightning fast. And that's the true strength of a real sword master. He couldn't move anymore. As soon as he grabbed him, the magic stopped working. George says that according to Rule 367 of the Academy Charter, a teacher could finish off anyone who attacked them within the Academy grounds without any consequences. And Chris's heir and student had to face his punishment. But at the last moment, he couldn't do anything, and his shot was simply deflected. The director then entered and told George to wait, that the execution time hadn't come yet. George turned and explained to the director that it was the magic scroll he had been given. He found traces of poison on Sal. The director immediately applied an advanced identification art. Did he know that the royal family's secret poison could kill blood mages? And Chris really gave him a hard time with that kid. The director said it still proved nothing. He should lock them up first, then start the investigation. And you better keep them locked up for a while. There's going to be a non-stop wave of assassination attempts against this guy. The director declared it was out of the question to intervene. The students had no reason to waste their time on such trivial matters. The disciples asked if Sal was the one who sent the beasts. Some answered yes. After all, Mentor George had discovered his poison thanks to the director's scroll. At that time, Chris, the dungeon guardian of the Academy, claimed that poison was the royal family's special weapon against blood mages. From what he discovered, Prince Andro had obtained it. Sal got angry and said he wouldn't let it go and that he would hunt him down. Chris walked away saying it was childish. He told him to stay here and think about the fact that in this world, no matter how many enemies he kills, there will always be plenty more. On the other side of the wall, Oliver said Sal was just an idiot. Mr. K's job is to protect the royal family, and he told him straight up that he wanted to kill the prince. He was honored to contribute to His Highness's project. Sal remembered then that people said it was an honor to be the Cooper family's shadow. He should be proud of that. Sal asked the guy if he'd never wondered if it was worth it, wasting his talent, all his efforts, to satisfy someone else's desires? Or did he want to be treated like a disposable commodity whose life could be sold at any moment? And did he really not care about anything else? If he confessed to Director Albus what he did in the dungeon, it would help him break free from the prince's influence. Oliver had had enough and yelled at him to shut up. Did he want him to become like him, a rabid animal who betrayed his family and master? Sal asked what he was talking about. He was eager to see what the master he was so loyal to would do to him. Suddenly, someone entered the cell at night and told Oliver that His Highness had arranged a duel between him and Sal at the Colosseum. It was his last chance, and that precious vial of the Vine of Life would give him a glorious end. Oliver replied that he would surely obey His Highness's orders, even at the cost of his life. The servant said it was good that he understood that. His Highness appreciates his loyalty. Oliver declared that after accepting the Vine of Life, he would die. So what use would glory be after death? Suddenly, he thought all this was fake. Is fame really that important? Is it really worth sacrificing your life for? Suddenly, at dawn, they entered the Imperial Colosseum. All the supporters were thrilled because the fight was about to begin. The judge declared that today's duel would be an old-school duel. 2 warriors would fight under the beast's attack. And whether they kill their opponent or defeat the great beast together, the brave survivors would be rewarded and praised by His Highness, the second prince. Suddenly, the guardian shouted that the beast was about to wake up, but the boy couldn't escape and said goodbye to him. Oliver told the guy he had seen him use his bloody arts. If the attack's destruction zone is big enough, turning into blood wouldn't help him. But Sal didn't waste time and immediately hit hard. Oliver was surprised by his defense and asked, "What just happened?" Sal asked if he had any idea how strong a swordsman with a heal level was. Had he been training hard since he was 4 years old? Sal realized that now that he could recover, he was going to try a Chris attack from 10 meters away. But he used the silent blade Romble instead. Oliver told the guy he had regained his strength. And now, he was outmatched. The prince wondered why Oliver hadn't used the potion yet, so he ordered someone to bring Gray here. The prince decided to take an interest in Oliver's mom, since she was the second prince's cook. And Oliver thought, if he lost, what would he do? Oliver grabbed the bottle and drank it, claiming he wasn't allowed to. As he drank all the liquid, he immediately felt a surge of energy. Oliver transformed into a monster and attacked, shouting at Sal to die for his mother. When he confronted him, he asked Sal to save his mother from the second prince's hands. In exchange, he would help him kill the beast. Sal asked what he planned to do. Oliver replied that his mother would only see tomorrow if he died. He used the flaming blade vortex extraction art. Throwing himself at the monster, he was caught under its tentacles, which pierced his chest. After the explosion, the prince declared it was a waste of time and energy. He hadn't even managed to handle something so insignificant. But Oliver's mother was devastated seeing this. She cried over her son's death. At that moment, Oliver hoped his death would calm His Highness's anger, and hoped Sal would understand he had paid for his sins, and would save his mother. But the situation turned out way more complicated than that. The infernal life core suddenly activated, and finally, Oliver told Sal he was asking him to save his mother. Sal tried to bring him back to reason and asked if he was working for the second prince for her, and if he died, it wouldn't help or save anyone. He should take care of his family, and he'd owe him after that. Sal shattered the crystal and used blood magic to regenerate blood and flesh. He realized the infernal vine's blood could neutralize the life vine's negative effects. Let him be and regain his strength. Professor Chris will come get him. The prince said at that moment he hadn't even thought blood magic was so powerful. It could simultaneously defeat a beast and a demigod swordsman. And now, he congratulates him. The winner can ask for his reward. So, what will he choose? Wealth? Or will he beg for forgiveness? Sal replied he only wanted her. The prince, surprised, asked for just one servant girl. What did he want? Was he trying to get revenge on the Winter family and himself? The servants started mocking her and said Sal was truly a blood mage. Greed, thirst for blood, and desire to kill had consumed his soul. So why not join him and become his loyal blade to wield? Sal approached the servant and asked the prince if his attitude toward the servants was really so careless. Oliver gave his life for him, died on orders. His family was immediately thrown out into the cold. The prince stepped forward and said he regretted Oliver's death. Sal asked what would happen if he refused to join. The prince replied that blood mages were persecuted in their empire. Only the powerful could protect them. He should become his sword, or he'd be expelled from the academy for attempted assassination. One of the warriors rushed at him and asked how he dared refuse His Majesty's gift. Watch your words. But Sal didn't flinch and immediately blocked the warrior's attack. Suddenly, the doors burst open and Oliver rushed in. But the guards shouted that an assassin was here. Protect His Majesty. The servant girl hugged her son, happy he was alive. The prince, furious, then asked, is he still alive? How can such a cowardly traitor still be here? Send him to hell immediately. But Sal wouldn't let them talk like that and launched an attack, saying only he would go to hell here. Sal gave them no chance and used a bloody rocket against them. Reaching the prince, Sal said, as you see, your power is useless now. The prince turned to Chris and said that as head of the royal guard, he was also the royal family's ultimate assassin. And had he really decided to become a traitor too? Chris replied he was loyal only to His Majesty. Here are the 3 vials of the king's poison. They were found in Melissa's dungeon and on Oliver's body. As head of the royal guard, it's his duty to find their origin. Chris thought it was good. Sal saved his daughter Angela. Otherwise, Sandro could have manipulated him like he did Oliver. And the prince realized if he kept investigating, he'd eventually uncover the whole truth. So, His Majesty would definitely put him under house arrest. The exchange meeting for new academy students was about to start, and if he wasn't there, his bro would definitely take away this chance. The prince said his 3 bottles were a gift for Moran. How Oliver managed to get them? No clue. And His Highness means what happened was Moran and Oliver's plan. Nothing to do with them? The prince answered, of course. He'd make sure Moran got the punishment he deserved, then report back. And he ordered Moran to be brought here. Sal realized this prince was behind everything. He was controlling and manipulating others, all because of his status and wealth. But if he hurt him now, Professor Chris would have problems too. First, Moran has to be killed and the prince's hands tied. Philippe asked His Highness if he was looking for him, but he wondered how he had the guts to attack a noble in broad daylight. And it was him, the bastard. The bastard said that by the Empire's sacred laws, Moran was a baron, meaning even if he let that bastard be killed, he'd only have to apologize to the Cooper family and pay gold compensation. That bastard said it meant Moran was still alive. Well, as a baron, Moran wasn't bound by any Empire laws, right? The bastard approached His Majesty and announced the Cooper family apologized to the court. After all, it was the lack of discipline in his childhood that made such a wild animal dare attack him. The prince replied that such a rabid dog should be imprisoned. The bastard told him not to worry, he'd handle the situation. Alan told that bastard they hadn't seen each other in a while. So, what's it gonna be? Ready to go back to your cage? Chris told his student he was even surprised by his reaction today. He was talking about that Cooper family guy trashing him in front of everyone, and he was disgusted hearing that. He wasn't even angry, Sal asked. Why would he be? He'd dealt with him more than once already. But Alan was protected by shadow oaths, so he wouldn't die. Only the Cooper family's shadows would suffer. His mom didn't want to leave her son alone. She and the family head were also present. Plus, Second Prince Sandro was tasked with organizing the exchange meeting for new academy students. He had to invite the heads of the 7 great families, boosting his influence and power. The warriors lunged at him, shouting, "That miserable poisoner! We'll crush him in the name of the light. And may Lord Chris not be fooled. May they tear that fake mask off that insolent face." Sal said there was no need to shout like that. Many powerful S-rank warriors would be at the exchange meeting, way stronger than them. And they were also waiting to fight him. So he didn't have time to waste fighting them. Chris laughed and said the kid was wise. He'd clearly grown up. Chris said he'd arranged a meeting with Director Albus. The director was very interested in his hereditary blood magic and wanted to learn more. Maybe he could even help him learn something new. The director turned to Sal and told him to use his best moves. Sal replied this wouldn't end well. The principal attacked the guy and asked if he respected his elders. Then he was about to start. The director opened a gate and unexpectedly attacked Sal. He cast a summoning spell without a word. Sal decided he was lucky to defend himself with blood magic. This attack was as powerful as a master swordsman's. The director declared that even though he was far from his best, he could still fight a golden master swordsman. So, give it your all. Sal said then he wouldn't hold back anymore, and would now ask the director for lessons. He immediately used the 4th bloody sword technique, Bloodstorm. The director said the strike wasn't bad, but its effectiveness was limited. He told him to try focusing more power into one hit. Sal dodged instantly and used Blood Flame. The director asked if he'd boosted the strike's power with his own blood. Sal dodged all attacks and used his Mad Serpent charge. The director said he was too reckless. The blood demon wouldn't miss the chance to devour its master. The demon said it served him right to die. The director explained he fed on the life force of other creatures, and that Sal was only increasing his strength by burning his own blood. Sal constantly used high-level arts, burning a lot of blood, which allowed the demon to take control of him. The demon turned to the old man and asked him to let him go. He would kill everyone else to the last one. The director was surprised and said he was conscious, and that voice sounded exactly like Brad Cooper Jr.'s. Chris started yelling at the director that he couldn't take it anymore, and that Sal wouldn't survive this. The director told them not to worry. He still had strength. And to protect Sal from the demon, they had to seize the right moment and chain the monster. He forbade Sal from using blood magic, until he learned to control the blood demon. Sal told the director that the exchange meeting was about to start, and he couldn't use his best arts. Chris explained that's why he had to master the magic as soon as possible. The essence of blood magic is to control and manipulate blood. He would give him special training for that. The principal replied that Sal was already used to blood swordsmanship. He wouldn't even notice if things got out of hand. And then, disaster would be inevitable. The demon said that the troops led by the 1st and 2nd generations of Lord Cooper were invincible. Yet, they all died in one night. He never wondered what happened to them. Sal remembered and wondered if the master of blood swordsmanship had committed a massacre. That would explain why this event wasn't mentioned in the family library books. The director said he had to take care of many friends at the academy. If he didn't want to die by his hands, he had to learn to control the demon mixed inside him. Sal told the director he understood and thanked him. Chris told Sal to get going. Now begins the special training in blood magic. Seeing the strange bird, Chris declared that the fewer people knew about this secret training, the better. The bird, watching everything, suddenly saw Sal naked and was shocked. Chris talked about the number of birds in this forest. The academy would soon come alive. The bird soon transformed into a girl and told her master it was just a healing bath. Luna Forest, a talented S-rank disciple of the Forest family, one of the 7 great families, said that Lord Evron had done it on purpose. However, the director forbade Sal from using blood magic, meaning he could definitely kill him at the student exchange meeting. The next day, the judge declared the annual student exchange transfer meeting open. It's one of the few events in the street, gory metropolitan area that can fill an entire stadium, and also meet the heads of the empire's greatest families. Present were His Royal Highness, the second Prince Andro, the lords of noble families, as well as professors and students of the Imperial Academy. They were also here today to discover new talents and the potential of their first-year students. We must thank Prince Andro for organizing this meeting. Plus, the contest winner would get top priority to study at the academy, the prince's gratitude, and all their wishes granted. Sal noticed the second prince was getting bolder in his efforts to win others' favor. Honestly, what luck to have such a reward on the line. If he won, the Cooper family's fall would be much closer than before. The jury explained the contest was split into two parts: qualifications and the tournament. In the first round, 8 worthy students would be selected to join the tournament. They'd fight one-on-one in an arena, until only one winner remained. The qualification round would follow the old rules. 8 students who managed to cut off a Hydra's head and keep it until the end of the battle would qualify for the tournament. The warriors immediately rushed to fight the Hydra. Someone attacked right away, and the Hydra's first head flew off its shoulders. It was like natural magic, a magic not taught at the academy. Who did that? Sal saw that at such a young age, he already possessed the crow incarnation and magical arrow creation at the same time. Definitely an S-rank talent. A newcomer from the Forest family, not bad at all. Among the newcomers, there were many hidden talents. Suddenly, someone dared to steal the Forest family's loot. The boy, all excited, declared he was grateful to his little sister Crow for his ticket to the tournament. He accepted it gladly. The Crowsis suddenly spread her wings and asked the boy if he wanted to die. At that moment, Sal wondered who was stronger: the Forest family, king of the jungle, or finally the Lord of the Storm. Soldane stood still and replied, "Cute. Did she really think she could break his defenses with that attack?" Soldane dodged and shouted for her to watch out. After all, if she lost too many feathers, she'd go bald. As expected from the Delanco family, known for their impenetrable defense. The referee announced that Soldane Delanco was first. He had taken the Hydra's head and would move on to the next round. The boys were shocked and couldn't understand how he won so fast. Sal realized this monster was way stronger than the dragon he attacked in the dungeon. Luckily, it was under suppression magic, or they'd be in big trouble. Gloria also stepped forward and attacked the monster from behind, saying she didn't expect such an attack. Then she let it turn around. Gloria declared she wouldn't let these northern barbarians underestimate the warriors of their empire. Sal saw this and immediately knew she was a member of the Isaac family. No wonder they became the Emperor's right hand in his past life. Guillaume rushed in shouting, "This is Imperial Academy territory. Let's go, we have to show them." The judge yelled that the Hydra was furious and they had to defend themselves. Suddenly, the Hydra lunged at Adelia. Seeing this, Sal attacked the Hydra from afar to avoid hurting Adelia. Adelia was shocked and exclaimed, "He's strong." He took down the monster with one sword strike. Sal was convinced the Hydra was wiped out. It seemed the Academy didn't want to lose during the selection. Guillaume ran over and told Sal he had one too. Sal got hyped, thinking one more head would be enough for the whole squad to move on. Sal looked at the others and said it was rare to see such a weakened Hydra. Besides the head, it should bring something else. Sal headed toward the Hydra and told Adelia, Gloria, and William to move on to the next stage. He wants to train with this creature. Sal realized that even if he couldn't use blood magic, he was still strong enough to fight it with just his sword. As for his magical fire attack, he thought he'd use it. Finish off the beast. Taking control of the Hydra's head, he immediately launched his fire attack, aiming straight at the other head. Sal realized that now that its regeneration was weakened by his strongest attack, he had to act fast. With only one head left, it would spend all its energy rebuilding the severed parts. Sal jumped on the Hydra and easily cut off its head. He understood that at this stage, the Hydra would be at its weakest. Now, if he synced with the blood magic Chris taught him and landed one last hit, he could get its regeneration gift. But suddenly, during his attack, Alan appeared and cut off the Hydra's head, saying Sal was as dumb as ever. Trying to cut off its last head, he caused a massacre and missed his chance to enter the tournament. And why isn't he dropping to his knees begging? Maybe then he'd reward him with a pass. Sal asked, kneeling before him and begging for mercy. He had no shame, and if he didn't care about joining the tournament, then maybe it meant nothing to him either. Sal cut the line, and seeing he'd caught his friends, got angry and turned to him. Sal stayed still, waiting for his moment, then suddenly told Alan he was about to die. The prince saw this, and said they'd remove the Hydra's limiter. That bastard Cooper was really eager to die, and if there were 2 or 3 more monsters in the arena, it'd be way more entertaining. Alan said today he'd avenge all the humiliation he suffered as a kid, and at the same time, wash that shame away with his blood. Alan turned to Lisa and told her to act. He explained he'd brought the fiercest dog from the Sang family. Sal knew Lisa used dark magic that weakened and drained her target's life. Fighting her head-on would be a waste of energy. But because of Alan, he hadn't managed to cut the Hydra's last head in time, letting it fully regain its strength. But Sal didn't hesitate and, moving to the side, stabbed his sword straight into the Hydra's head. He decided that in this case, he'd let them fully enjoy the unleashed power of the Hydra too. Alan told Baxter he was an idiot. Did he really think wrecking Lisa's hair would hurt him? The Hydra grew way stronger and suddenly unleashed its dogs into the fray. Sal found it interesting that she could absorb and transform the Hydra's flames, but using the Hydra's power so boldly would only make her angrier. She definitely wouldn't let the attacker off after that provocation, but the Hydra had just been unleashed, and there wasn't much time before its power exploded. Alan had to be taken out as soon as possible. The Hydra yelled at Alan to be more careful, but Sal didn't hesitate and immediately crushed several of them. Sal got really close to Alan and asked how his half-dead dogs were supposed to stop him from killing Alan. But Alan used damage redirection. Sal realized it was another clutch trick. As it got harder to finish Alan, William saw the Hydra fall and asked if Sal needed help. Suddenly, something happened to the Hydra and she started screaming. Sal told the guy he didn't need help. He'd better hurry and get her out of here. William grabbed the Hydra, but she started biting his hands. William screamed that she was hurting him. The referee announced third place went to Gloria Isaac. He then congratulated her on qualifying. William put the Hydra down and told her to stop biting. Didn't she know Sal didn't want to kill her? The referee announced sixth place went to William, and congratulated him on qualifying. William said if the Hydra stayed here, it would only delay Alan's revenge. Was a monster like that worth risking his life for? Suddenly, her mind opened completely, and she saw William looking at her with those beautiful eyes. William said that as he grew stronger, he'd be able to defend himself. They had personally passed the test and earned their spot in the tournament, and he hopes that at the next stage, they'll be able to fight on equal footing. The judge also awarded 7th place to Lisa Sana. He congratulated her on advancing to the next stage. Alan saw her running away and shouted that she was a creature. And how dare you call yourself a traitor? Sal replied that no one else could protect him anymore. And was he ready to die? Alan cut off the Hydra's head and asked if he wanted to kill him. Too bad, he wouldn't get to do it today. He'd be the last fighter to advance to the next stage of the competition, and he'd become the Hydra's prey. Sal waved his hand, cut off a few Hydra heads, and asked Alan if he was sure. But Sal realized he hadn't killed the Hydra so fast, but thanks to him, he had thoroughly exhausted the monster. And now that she was at her weakest, he could finish the ritual. Master Chris then told him about a blood magic ritual described in ancient scrolls. By mixing the monster's blood with the owner's life force, a shared bond forms between them. Suddenly, the system appeared and announced the acquisition of S-Class Rapid Regeneration. It allows physical damage to heal at lightning speed, while avoiding negative side effects from the attack. Sal declared that at that moment, a person could synchronize blood flow and not only control the monster's will, but also take over its special abilities. Alan saw the blood on his hands and was a bit shocked. His arm had turned to bone and fallen off. Alan yelled, "How dare he cut off his arm again?" Sal said he regretted not being able to recover it this time. Then, the A-class skill, Erosion, was obtained again. It instantly absorbs part of the chosen target's life force. Sal said that as someone the shadows had sworn to, he never wondered what it would be like to become such a shadow himself. Alan understood everything, and replied that was the point. No wonder he'd managed to live such a miserable life for so long. Did he think this revenge would work? All the pain he'd suffered would be transferred to countless innocent shadows. Sal told Alan he didn't really understand how the oath worked. All the damage he took from his master couldn't be passed on to other shadows already under his command. And unlike him, after all, Alan felt all their pain. Alan told Baxter no, he was just crazy. He'd lost it. And now he was asking Sal to let him go. But Sal didn't feel sorry for him and immediately swung his sword multiple times. Alan said he could kill him. Then do it. Sal replied he wouldn't let him go that easily. He wants Alan to keep living in agony and fear, without even knowing when his body would be pierced by that pain again. After all, he had lived like that before. Sal came out with Hydra's head, and the judge ranked him 8th. At that moment, one of the participants shouted, "What a huge head." Apparently, it had never been cut off before. This guy is seriously tough, and he's the first in the Lancott family to get promoted. Besides his insane defense skills, rumor has it he has a secret art to control dragons. Sal saw the guy staring at him, saying he was looking forward to fighting him. But the referee announced that tomorrow would be the first round of their tournament. Soledin of Lancott and Sal Cooper would face off in the opening match. Sal realized he'd be up against a fearsome opponent like Soledin of the Ring right from the start. The second prince clearly wanted him dead, and this was the perfect moment to face him. After all, if he wanted to win the tournament, better to face the strongest of the strong as soon as possible. Soledin lunged at him with an attack, shouting he hoped Sal liked the taste of his axe. Sal saw this guy had serious power and speed. That kind of attack would be tough to block. Soledin just couldn't stop, swinging his axe non-stop. He got mad and yelled, "How dare you dodge? Let him fight then." Sal powered up, stood on his axes, and asked, "Is this the coward? The Lancot house has been known as the Sea War since ancient times, so real men are supposed to hide from enemies at a distance and shoot them with guns, right?" Soledin just lost his cool and, attacking, shouted for Sal to repeat what he said. Sal stopped his punch and replied he had a lot of strength for such a small guy. Soledin waved his hand after the attack and called the guy a trickster. He asked if Sal wanted to piss him off and get caught at the right moment, but that wouldn't work. Soledin decided to reveal all his cards. He pulled out his axes and simply changed his aura. Sal definitely didn't expect Soledin's defense to be this impenetrable. Even the Hydra's erosion combined with bloody spikes hadn't hurt him. Soledin attacked the guy and asked why he was so angry. Now he'd pay for his words. Sal wasn't scared and pissed Soledin off even more by countering the kid's attack. At the last moment, Sal applied blood magic to the common bond and ordered Soledin to freeze. Soledin didn't understand what happened and asked what he did. Sal said that in war, all means are fair. When you unleash power, you have to stay alert. Otherwise, a crafty guy like him can trap you with a blood bond. Sal brandished his sword and chased the boy away. Soledin couldn't resist and flew off like a feather. And after all that, Soledin summoned. It was a flying demon, an A-class monster among elite dragons. It could use ice and lightning magic. Sal knew it was a ruthless flying monster, relying on agility over brute force. Not really on par with the fierce Soledin. Soledin sat on his throne and said the kid even convinced him to summon his dragon. But it was really too bad it ended there for him. Chris said that according to arena rules, summoned creatures couldn't participate in the tournament. That wasn't fair to Sal. The judge replied that rules are rules, but Soledin was an exception. Being a dragoon, he disagreed. If he disagreed, too bad. Sal was also allowed to summon creatures. Soledin gave orders to his dragon, and told the guy he'd now see how he'd dodge it. Sal realized that if he kept wasting energy blocking attacks like this, it'd end badly. He needed to close the distance between them. Soledin shouted the boy got lucky. Today, he'd show him the most powerful dragoon attack. The prince watching said Soledin was indeed the most talented warrior in the Anko family. The old man replied to the prince that he was very grateful for the compliment, and his son was the pride of their family. Being the only child in the Anko family, able to make a pact with a dragon for the first time in centuries, he could communicate with a flying demon to harness the power of the skies themselves and unleash the full force of thunder on his enemies. Soledin said he would lead the Anko house and dragons to a bright future. It was a great honor for him to die under the fury of the storm itself. But when he opened his eyes, Sal activated his dragon defense and told the kid he was more hyped than expected. Everyone was shocked to see a demonic dragon before them, and they wondered if it was extinct. Sal realized that only absorbing catastrophic attacks could help the demonic dragon develop its powers. Alan had met it in a past life, but never fully unlocked its potential. Sal knew that today, the dragon had gained lightning magic, and in the future, its power would become immeasurable. Sal told the guy to show off his new skills. He immediately attacked with his demonic dragon. Soledin, shocked, said it was impossible. Sal told Soledin he had to win this fight. Then he unleashed a powerful lightning strike. The dragon instantly declared the judge could call it over. Sal realized what it meant to shine like 1,000 flames, a reward no shadow had ever received. Suddenly, Soledin's dad came down and said Sal was just a pathetic thief who stole the power and treasure of the Anko family. And he had to give it back. With his demonic dragon, Dad didn't back down and threw his axe to get the dragon back. But the dragon saw it and easily blocked the attack. Sal then asked, "Is that really his dragon?" Descending with his dragon, Sal told the old man he was shameless. And today, he'd show him the harsh truth of this world. Long ago, in the world of swords and magic, dragon riders flying high in the sky were the deadliest and strongest foes. To keep the balance of power among noble families, the old king destroyed all demonic dragons. The last clutch was locked inside the Crystal Lord. The key was split between the Cooper and Isaac families. The old man said demonic dragons hadn't disappeared. Perfect. Too bad he recognized them as his master, Sal the punk. He understood dragons were the most loyal creatures in the world, and if they chose their master, they'd never betray them. If the rider died or tried to separate them by force, it would only drive the dragon to suicide. The old man asked the young man where he found that dragon. He had bros and sis, right? And if their Enko family got their hands on a real demonic dragon, they'd definitely become the strongest of the Empire's 7 great houses. Sal replied it was the last demonic dragon in the entire world. They were ordered to destroy the rest of the eggs. The old man asked who gave that order. Sal said it was the one who least wanted the Enko family at the top of the food chain. Sometimes, absolute loyalty protects forever. The old man asked, surprised, if it was the second prince. Why would he do that? After all, it was way easier to control a dragon by breaking its wings and fangs. Sal approached William and told him his next opponent was the Forest family heiress. They mainly use traps to hunt their prey efficiently. He'd better close the distance fast and use his strongest arts to take her down quickly. Otherwise, he'd get bombarded with crossbow bolts. William immediately used the Imperial fencing's dry cut and shouted at Luna to master the technique. But Luna used reflection and counterattacked. William didn't expect Luna to defend so fast. Despite his strength, William's attacks were easy to predict. Better to break free from the vine, wrapping him while Luna attacked with her crossbow. Then, right after her strike, he should try to close in again. But William didn't hang back and used Imperial fencing. He decided to take the hit, causing a shockwave that tore the magical vines. William simply applied his Imperial fencing to the swallow flight. Then came the charge and a dagger strike. But William realized all this was draining his stamina. Luna didn't back off either and launched a crossbow attack. William immediately blocked it with an Imperial fencing parry. Luna knew if she didn't end this now, her life would be in serious danger. William decided to finish it once and for all, and he attacked with one of his strongest moves. Sal had been watching the fight the whole time and said he failed. William looked up and asked where she went. Luna attacked from behind and said it was just fencing, nothing more. Shocked, William wondered why he was frozen. Luna didn't waste time and attacked again. But suddenly, Sal realized something was off with William. It was because he had used a lot of energy in the last fight. Or maybe it was the effects of the hallucinogenic plants. It seemed Luna had trapped their spores in the tangled vines at the start of the fight. And it was worth it for William to cut the vines around him, because the mushroom spores were starting to spread in the air nearby. At the moment of his attack, considering the explosion that followed, he had time to inhale them and fall under their influence. Sal thought it over and realized this was the alarm bell. He would surely avenge William by fighting her. The referee declared William out of the arena and Luna Forest the winner of this round. Sal was pissed to see William fly off to the side and asked the girl what she wanted to do with him. The girl said she wanted to save William and grabbed him with her vines. Sal wondered when they had gotten so close. She caught him even faster. It was weird she just saved his life but kept her distance. Adelia approached and told him Lady Luna was too cruel to William. He still had spores from those hallucinogenic mushrooms in his body. Impossible to get rid of them. Sal suddenly said he had an idea. He asked the girl if she could hit William with dark magic. He needed to wake up as soon as possible. The girl made her move and Sal said he was awake. He told William to think about thanking Lisa for that. William looked at her and thanked her for saving him. Lisa blushed on the neck and ran off. But William said she saw him and immediately bolted. Adelia said Lisa's magic collided with hers inside William's body. That let her see some of her own memories. She hadn't been able to protect Alan, but she saved William's life. And that bastard's mother was going to punish her for it. Sal told her not to worry. Lisa was a tournament participant, and Madame Cooper wasn't crazy enough to punish her during the competition. At that moment, Errol was hitting her, calling her a useless trinket, unable to even protect her master, yet still wanting to prove herself in the arena. And what made her think she was worthy? Errol showed no mercy and beat her with a wire, leaving cuts all over her body. There was a man famous for his dark sorcery. The Sonar clan gathered orphan street boys from around the world every year to bring them to their family's dark temple. And blood, dark magic feeds on the deepest human suffering and despair. But by systematically destroying their psychological resilience, the clan burns their humanity down to exhaustion. Only the rare few who miraculously survive this agony earn the honor of bearing the blood mark and becoming ruthless instruments of death. Errol asked her. Had she forgotten what she was taught? Her body, soul, and every drop of blood belonged to her master. And since she couldn't protect her lord, that hand had become useless. Lisa, agonizing from her wounds, begged forgiveness from her lord. She was unworthy and had failed to protect young Master Alan. But suddenly, someone told Errol to stop abusing her and threw a sword at him. Adelia said this was an Imperial Academy, not her torture chamber. Errol, happy to see Sal, said her presence was bad luck and that better yet, she'd personally snap her neck. And he'd be like that dog, chained by dark magic, living a life worse than death, begging humiliated at her feet. Clenching her fist, Lisa started feeling strangled. Sal replied that was funny, and that the shadow oath imposed by the cuts now bound her to Alan. She had become his shadow. Errol got angry and cursed him. And how dare he speak to the Lord that way? Sal stepped forward and said he hoped she lived long. After all, poor Alan would feel all her pain twice over. Errol told him to take his time. Did he really think he could take down this creature after his betrayal? Errol looked up and said the mistress would forever remain under the blood's control. Not everyone can be an ungrateful snake like him. Lisa also said she'd be punished by her master and asked for her punishment. Sal got angry and said they were bloodthirsty executioners playing with human lives, and she better understand the consequences. Attacking a noble only supports the second prince and robs her of the right to advance. Adelia attacked immediately, claiming she'd seen Lisha's memories. And to free her, she had to awaken the most precious moments of her past. She approached Lisa and asked if she could hear her, that she had a fight to win. She had to win to stay at the academy, and finally, a chance to face her and find out who was stronger. Lisa snapped back to reality and asked in surprise if it was for the competition. She tried to remove the lock around her neck. Sal told her that if she managed to get out of this dungeon today, she would be freed from her chains forever. Errol grew more violent and asked how she dared to do that. They couldn't even imagine freedom. She would make her soul suffer torments she didn't even dare to imagine. Lisa kept trying to break free and said she couldn't die here. Breaking the chains, she unleashed all her power. Lisa stepped out and said she had made a promise. She wasn't allowed to lose her life here, and she wouldn't give up and couldn't be killed. William grabbed her and said she was a lifesaver. He was so scared something terrible would happen to her. Sal asked William how he ended up here. Wasn't the rector supposed to treat him? Errol shouted at that moment that he didn't dare talk like that. Even if Lisa is freed from the dark magic, she still belongs to the Sang clan. But then the director entered and said Lisa was a tournament participant, not private property of a house. Errol replied that, unfortunately, once the rookie tournament ended, the academy wouldn't be able to protect her anymore. The director asked, what if she became his student? Would the Sonar clan be ready to fight the Cooper family over that? Errol said nothing and stood up to leave. The director explained that it was William who insisted. Sometimes, a teacher has to fulfill their students' requests. Sal wondered if William had managed to influence the rector. He seems really attached to Lisha. Adelia approached William and told him she trusted him to take care of Lisha. William, surprised, asked why him. After all, it would be so convenient, why not Andrea? Suddenly, William heard strange words and yelled at them to shut up. After all, Lisa was sleeping. Sal went to see Professor Oliver and told him he did a good job. Thanks to him, they discovered the secret dungeon and saved Lisha. Oliver replied that before their arrival, the rector had already announced, on Lisha's behalf, that they wouldn't participate in the second round. The Santa clan officially recognized that Andrea and Molly were automatically disqualified. In the other group, a duel pits Gloria against the Mysterious Knight. The Mysterious Knight defeated Gloria in a flash, without a scratch, using techniques even he, an old master, couldn't recognize. And now, it's his turn to enter the arena. If he's late, the prince will deny him the right to advance. The referee started saying he would count to 3 if Sal didn't enter the arena, considering it a forfeit. But Sal didn't let that happen and arrived with the dragon, telling Moran he was really in a rush. He even begged Madame Luna to start. Luna replied, "Take my shot," and she fired a crossbow. But Sal used his dragon attack and roared with thunderous flames. He told her he wouldn't let her repeat her old tricks. They'd settle this once and for all. And he apologized for his rudeness. Luna replied that this move was too brutal. The referee declared Luna had fallen out of the arena. So the victory went to Sal. The Thunderflame Dragon was terrifyingly powerful. By unanimous decision of the second prince and the academy's management, the use of contracted magical creatures in arena tournaments is now banned. Sal realized the academy had always given him special treatment, right? The referee immediately announced that Andrea's next fight would be against the anonymous knight. The guy said, "Andrea, that dude on the other side has insane defense. Even Gloria couldn't scratch him. He didn't even consider showing mercy or holding back." Sal immediately went to Adelie and told her to be careful, and if things got dangerous, to surrender immediately. He'd handle the rest. Adelie thanked Sal and said she was leaving. But Sal kept wondering, who was this guy? He'd never heard of him in his past life. Adelie jumped into the fray and yelled at him to take the ice crystal, the stone strike that cracked the thunder. The guy said it was unbelievable. Adelie was already able to use 3 high-level attack spells at once. And what cute names! But the opponent had stayed still the whole time, dodging and saying Sal's attacks had no effect on him. Sal immediately thought, how did that strike just vanish like magic? Had all that elemental magic energy been absorbed? His opponent said the balance of power would give an equal response. Sal shouted at Adelie to dodge carefully, because this guy was about to land a powerful blow. His opponent raised his sword to the sky, and a massive tornado erupted. Sal wondered if this was really wind magic. Not only does it absorb attack energy, but it also uses wind power to build strength and launch a counterattack. Sal caught a daily and scored another instant victory. His power surpassed all other competitors. The referee immediately announced a daily was out of the arena. The final battle. Sal versus the Nameless Knight. Who will claim the ultimate victory? The winner will become the new director of the Imperial Academy. Whether commoner or noble, all students will obey him alone during their studies. The boys were already wondering if their future would be ruled by this outcast loser, Sal. But someone replied he wasn't even worthy of the spotlight. Let the knight finish him off in one blow, he's a pathetic loser. Sal stood before him and said he was the strongest opponent he'd ever faced. But he wouldn't be the one winning today. Sal stepped back and said he'd break his armor, his mask. And with it, the warnings of arrogant fools against those they call losers. The knight replied that dogs like him always dream of overturning the heavens. At those words, it's time to fight. As he attacked, he asked if this was really the one who absorbed Adeli's attack. It didn't seem like a skill, but a weapon that builds power by devouring magic. The knight asked if he managed to make it appear. This was really amusing, and now, they'll see if he's truly invulnerable. The knight raised his sword and told him not to waste his strength. He couldn't pierce his absolute defense. Sal told his opponent that balance would punish his arrogance. With a flick of his finger, he released liquid shells. Sal asked if he really thought he was a harbinger of doom looking down on everyone. And to watch closely. The blood boiling in his veins wouldn't let his breath calm down. And what an absolute defense. If he relies on something dead, it must have a blind spot or weakness. Even if others couldn't break his defenses, it meant their strikes weren't strong or frequent enough. Sal kept attacking, and said he wanted to see how much blood magic he could still absorb. The knight laughed and said how crazy he was. He was worthy of being his opponent. The knight opened up and said he'd fight him fairly. Sal replied that was hilarious. He added that arrogant nobles shouldn't underestimate bloody swordsmen who live in the shadows. The knight tried to attack but got trapped. While repelling aerial attacks, he set a blood magic trap. Sal appeared before him and said he was an arrogant knight, and let him show his true face hidden beneath that mask. The knight told the boy he was the first to put a sword to his throat. But victory wasn't secured yet, so don't celebrate too soon. Sal saw his wings and wondered, those are angel wings. This guy isn't so simple. The system showed angelic wings, like wings fitted to the body. They boosted the wearer's strength and speed while storing the sword's breath for a powerful strike. Sal asked, is this his true power? He didn't give him a single chance to catch his breath. The knight easily stopped the blow and told the boy he was arrogant and that he'd teach him respect. The knight raised his sword and blocked the boy's attack. But Sal told him to attack. The knight applied angelic light and shouted how good it felt. It was simply unbelievable. Chris had seen weapons and techniques like this. This was the guy he had trained. But why was he here? Clashing swords with him, the servant approached the prince and whispered something in his ear. The prince said he didn't dare come here. These men they had secretly prepared were finally going to be useful. Today, this nameless knight was going to die. The knight told his opponent his swordsmanship was as good as his, and that he was getting stronger every moment of the fight. But why? Sal asked if he really thought blood magic alone was enough of a trap to hold him. The knight said it was over. He would crush all his blood energy in one strike. Sal told him not to dare underestimate the power of a blood swordsman. The knight pointed all his swords at the monster and laughed. Awesome. Light versus shadow. Who's stronger? Sal took it all in stride and said even now, he was still clinging to his last hope. The knight replied he had the right to cling to anything. He used the blood net against his opponent. The knight said it was betrayal. He dared use blood energy to bind and torment him. He tried to break free, but Sal said it was useless. Blood energy is alive, and the more he resisted, the tighter it gripped. Now, they'd see what tricks he still had up his sleeve. But the knight snatched the necromancer's next ace from his hand. But Sal countered with the withering curse. He said he'd forced him to draw his weapon. The knight declared that if judged by pure strength, he was superior in this fight. Sal realized something was off. He was clearly trying to please him, but why did he feel even more threatened? Suddenly, a mercenary appeared out of nowhere and attacked Sal, but he was warned and dodged. Sal dodged too, and realized there was a conspiracy this massive at the Imperial Academy. The one behind it and the one facing him were no ordinary people. Then Sal did this. He pulled the knight's mask off and immediately recognized him. Leonard Richard. In his past life, he'd heard Prince Aini was beloved by warriors. He always marched forward, crushing rebels, but sadly died too soon. Now Sal realized he'd probably been ruined by endless assassination attempts from aristocrats. Murano started yelling it was an assassination attempt. Capture the assassins. Protect the second prince first. Leonard raised the necromancer's hand and said, "Here come those damn creatures again." If they sensed prey, they'd attack. He wasted no time and summoned angel wings in guardian form. He declared those miserable enough to plot against the royal family would accept death. But Sal also joined in with his dragon, and realized if he could stop this assassination attempt and befriend Prince Ine, he'd no longer fear the second prince's harassment. After his rebirth, he hadn't had the chance to cause real havoc. Today, he'd show what the death god of his past life could do. Sal glared and asked, "What's the path of the Azuras? Rivers of blood." The two men simultaneously faced the mercenaries and shouted at their subordinates to kill them once and for all. Linar said, "How dare a pathetic firefly challenge the full moon's glow?" He unleashed his eternal stars against them. Sal shouted for them to feel the fury of a blazing, roaring dragon, and these pathetic assassination attempts were the work of a rabble unworthy even of contempt. Linar said they'd pay with their lives for this vile rebellion. He attacked with the blood moon fossil, but suddenly, he felt an arrow fly behind him, but Sal caught it instantly and warned the boy about the hidden danger. Linar said he appreciated the warning but would finish this once and for all. He clenched his fist and incinerated all the mercenaries. But then a man holding a compass thought this day would be Linar's last. He guessed it was the alchemist reading the sacrifice technique, but it was more complicated than expected. Everything around them started moving. Linar immediately summoned angel wings as chains. Sal had mentioned a potion that weakens angel wings, but it seemed the puppeteer in the shadows knew this perfectly. Linar stared at him and felt his strength fading. Sal said if he hadn't come today, the senior prince might have repeated his past life fate, killed by an assassin's blade. He used ultra-fast regeneration, then the Karma Thunder Flame. But suddenly, a huge sandworm appeared before him. Sal shielded himself and told Linar to be careful. He saw the sandworm's shell was immune to magic, and the senior prince was poisoned and weak. He couldn't let it get a step closer. Sal ordered the dragon to attack with roaring flames. He faced the worm and attacked with the dragon stomp. Sal said the sandworm's shell was immune to magic attacks. They had to break through its defenses and pour magic directly into its gut. Sal saw the dragon was fighting it head-on and said excitedly, "Perfect." The prince was furious and asked Sal if he dared openly defy the royal bloodline. After all, the worm had fallen right at his feet. Linar replied, "No, Sal saved my life." But his dear little bro, leading this tournament, how could he let a horde of assassins descend on them? The prince said exactly that. The assassination attempt was deadly. Even he, under heavy guard, barely escaped. And Linar could stay calm. He'd uncover the truth and wouldn't leave the puppet masters alive. Linar sat on the throne and declared he survived that day only thanks to Sal. Imperial law states that a savior of royal blood can be immediately elevated to nobility. He granted Sal the title of Viscount and tasked him with helping the second prince uncover those who wove this conspiracy. Sal saw the link between the sandworm and Sandrew, a master of alchemy, and knew it was alarming. Sal expressed his gratitude to the senior prince for the honor. Also, as the winner of the novice contest, he hoped the second prince would honor his vows. The prince asked what he wanted and what he could give him. He understood the prince wanted to lure the winner with this reward to make him his dog, but Linar intercepted Sal first. Sal replied that he claimed the silver mist peaks of the Cooper family as his lifetime domain. The servant suddenly called Sal a greedy, dishonest jackal, but Linar said he believed Sal deserved the reward. Would the second prince dare go back on his promises? And the matter of these lands wasn't simple. If the silver mists couldn't be given to Sal, he offered him the ink crest on the capital's outskirts. The prince said everyone knew there were black gold deposits in those lands, and he had secured that promise from the king with great difficulty. Controlling those black gold veins meant controlling half the empire's magical wealth. He would never want to give them to an outsider. Black gold is said to be a substance with incredible magical compatibility, an essential component for crafting high-end magical artifacts, so its value knows no limits. And black gold is graphite. Black gold jewelry is as fragile as glass and can't be repaired. Linar turned to his young bro and asked if he'd made his decision. Would he give Sal the silver mists or the black ink abyss crest? The second prince said that in the name of the Cooper family head, he handed the silver mist peaks to Sal.